fewer white-feathered chickens. But Chen Dao changed the subject and said, I brought some other chicken breeds this time. I wonder if Miss Li is interested. Other chicken breeds? Li Ying was startled and asked, could it be a gray-feathered chicken? Gray-feathered chickens are the most common and widespread domestic chickens in Xia country. The only advantage of this thing is that it is easy to raise, but the taste is not very good and is far less plump than the white-feathered chickens that Chen Dao sold to Li Ying. Of course, it's not a gray-feathered chicken. Miss Li, come with me. Chen Dao led Li Ying to the side of the donkey cart. As Li Ying approached, Chen Cheng and others couldn't help but look restrained on their faces. On the way here, Chen had already told them Li Ying's identity. Li Ying was the daughter of the owner of the Fuhu Fizz School, one of the 3 major martial arts schools in the county. She was considered a top figure in the entire Taiping County, far beyond the reach of the villagers of Qinjia Village. Look, Miss Li, this is the chicken breed I brought this time. Chen Dao pointed to the 2 yellow-feathered hens in the chicken coop and introduced them to Li Ying, saying, I've named these yellow-feathered chickens. Compared to white-feathered chickens, yellow-feathered chickens are larger and have firmer meat. I think they'll be tastier than white-feathered chickens. This yellow-feathered chicken is quite unique. Li Ying looked at the yellow-feathered chicken in the cage and nodded. It's just as you said. It's bigger and its feathers are brighter. I wonder how much this chicken costs. Li Ying was indeed tempted. Yellow-feathered chickens sell better than white-feathered chickens. In Li Ying's opinion, the better the chicken looks, the better it tastes. Therefore, she already had the idea of buying these 2 yellow-feathered chickens. This, Chen Dao's eyes rolled as he thought quickly. Miss Li, you know it's not easy for us to go into the mountains and catch these chickens. Yellow-feathered chickens are harder to find than white-feathered chickens, so the price is inevitably higher. Just tell me, how much is it? This, Chen Dao hesitated for a moment, then offered what he thought was a good price. 1 tael of silver per piece. No problem. Just 1 or 2 taels of silver each. Li Ying was too lazy to bargain and accepted the price directly. She is indeed a wealthy woman with great wealth. Chen Dao secretly praised Li Ying in his heart, and he also had a better understanding of the strength of Fuhu Boxing Gym. 1 tael of silver for a chicken, and they didn't even bargain. All I can say is that the wealth of the Fuhu Boxing Gym is beyond Chen Dao's imagination. In fact, Chen Dao had misunderstood. In his opinion, the cost of raising a yellow-feathered chicken was just a 500 liang white-feathered chicken plus a few copper coins of chicken heart grass and sumac flowers. But in Li Ying's opinion, this yellow-feathered chicken was the prey that Chen Dao and others had captured by risking their lives in the mountains, so it was natural that the price was higher. Xiao Wei, help me get these chickens in. After handing Chen Dao 3.5 taels of silver, Li Ying waved to Wei Gu, asking him to help him deliver the 5 chickens he had bought into the restaurant. He then said to Chen Dao, Brother Chen, if you have any more yellow-feathered and white-feathered chickens in the future, please continue to send them over. I'll take as many as you want. No problem. Chen Dao agreed without hesitation. Naturally, he was willing to continue doing business with a big client like Li Ying who was straightforward. However, Chen Dao might not come by himself next time. Ms. Li, I want to ask you something. Chen Dao suddenly said. What is it? I wonder if Miss Li has ever heard of iron claw chicken and blood-clotting fruit. Iron claw chicken? Never heard of it. As for the blood-clotting fruit, Li Ying frowned and thought for a moment, then looked Chen Dao straight in the eye and said, Why are you asking about the blood-clotting fruit? Haven't you given up on practicing martial arts yet? Li Ying must know about the blood-clotting fruit. Chen Dao's eyes lit up, and he said quickly, I'm just asking. I wonder if Miss Li could explain something to me. Li Ying looked at Chen Dao deeply and said, Blood-clotting fruit isn't a rare thing. Most of the pharmacies in the city controlled by the big families sell it. However, very few people go to the pharmacies to buy blood-clotting fruit. Why? Chen Dao couldn't help but ask. Because the effect of the blood-clotting fruit is useless to warriors or even quasi-warriors, and is not the best thing to nourish qi and blood for apprentice-level warriors. Naturally, there are few buyers. Li Ying said, I see. Chen Dao suddenly realized that the function of the blood-clotting fruit was to nourish the qi and blood. However, according to Li Ying, the effect of the blood-clotting fruit in nourishing the qi and blood should be very weak, and it might not even be effective for some apprentice-level warriors who are currently practicing martial arts. Based on this, Chen Dao can basically infer that the value of the blood-clotting fruit must not be too high. If the value of the blood-clotting fruit is not high, then the matter of raising blood-feather chickens by myself will be settled. According to the Golden Finger's instructions, it only takes 3 blood-clotting fruits to cultivate a yellow-feathered chicken into a blood-feathered chicken. Thinking of this, Chun Dao calmly asked, I wonder how much this blood-clotting fruit is worth. Wait for me a moment. Li Ying walked into the martial arts hall and came out with 2 fruits in his hand. This is the blood-clotting fruit. As for the price, it shouldn't cost more than 20 coins in a pharmacy. Chapter 35, The Terrible Tax Hike. 20 cents. This price made Chun Dao ecstatic. He looked carefully at the 2 fruits in Li Ying's hand and found that the fruits were as big as eggs, round all over, with a hint of red on the skin, which was different from most fruits Chun Dao had seen. These 2 blood-clotting fruits are for you. Li Ying directly stuffed 2 blood-clotting fruits into Chun Dao's hands. Knowing that Li Ying was a wealthy woman, Chun Dao didn't refuse and accepted the fruit directly. Then he said goodbye. Miss Li, I have other things to do, so I'll leave first. Go. After saying goodbye to Li Ying, Chun Dao got on the donkey cart and left with Chun Sheng and others. Li Ying returned to the backyard of the martial arts hall. Chuckle. In the backyard of the martial arts hall, the sound of roosters crowing could be heard one after another. Li Hu stood beside the chicken coop, looking thoughtfully at the white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens in the cage. Father. It was not until Li Ying's voice came that Li Hu turned his gaze and said, Yingzi, did you buy these chickens again? Yes. Li Ying sat down at the stone table and said, Dad, we have white-feathered chickens to eat again. Li Ying is a foodie, which is the consensus of everyone in Fuhu Boxing Gym. As a foodie, Li Ying has a special liking for chicken. However, she has long been tired of the taste of gray-feathered chicken and is obsessed with white-feathered chicken instead. After all, compared to gray-feathered chickens, white-feathered chickens not only have more meat, but are also fatter, and the taste of their chicken is far better than that of gray-feathered chickens. Yu. Li Hu pointed at Li Ying. He was well aware of Li Ying's foodie nature. In fact, not only Li Ying was a foodie, but so was Li Hu. Li Hu also missed the taste of white-feathered chicken. Otherwise, he would not have stood by the chicken coop and observed the chickens. Was the chicken delivered by that guy, named Chun Dao again this time? Li Hu sat down opposite Li Ying and asked. Yes. Li Ying replied. It's not easy for Brother Chun Dao and his men either. They have to take risks every day going into the mountains to hunt. Well, Li Hu sighed lightly and couldn't help but think of what happened in the county government office a few days ago. In fact, when the county magistrate asked each family to contribute some money and food, Li Hu himself wanted to agree, but the other major families and martial arts schools were unwilling to do so. After all, the Fuhu Boxing School still has to survive in Taiping County, and it is impossible not to advance and retreat together with the 4 major families and the 2 martial arts schools. I'm afraid there's going to be trouble in the city soon. Li Hu looked up at the sky. The cold weather had no effect on him as a warrior, but it was quite unbearable for ordinary people. The cost of harvesting crops is not good. When the income is insufficient to cover the expenses, we have to face the tax increase from the government. I'm afraid trouble is just around the corner. East Market. Wuhan sat behind his goods, looking worried. Brother Wu, what are you doing? But at this moment, a voice came from behind him. Wuhan turned around, and a surprised smile suddenly appeared on his face. Brother Chun, why are you here? Chun Dao jumped off the donkey cart, gave Wuhan a gentle hug, and said with a smile, Brother Wu, how's business lately? Oh, don't mention it. Wuhan said with a gloomy face. I can't sell any goods recently. How come? Chun Dao glanced at the stall in front of Wuhan. There were several chicken cages on it, and a few gray-feathered chickens were clucking in the cages. Wuhan first greeted Chun Da and the others, then said, Brother Chun, you don't know. Business in this county town is not doing well these days. Take these live poultry, for example. No one is buying them. Why? Chun Dao asked in confusion. Eating meat is one of the most basic needs of human beings, so live poultry should not be unsellable. Of course, it's because the government increased taxes. Wuhan said with a gloomy face. The government recently issued an order requiring every household in the county to hand over at least 1 dan of grain. If they can't provide enough grain, they must pay 2 taels of silver. Brother Chun, tell me, under such circumstances, who would be willing to buy meat? Increased taxes? Chun Dao was stunned. Having lived in China in his previous life, it was difficult for him to understand the practice of increasing taxes in years of disaster. In the past, whenever a place was hit by a disaster, the government would often allocate funds for disaster relief, but here, the situation is the opposite. Not only did the government refuse to allocate funds for disaster relief, it also increased taxes. Does the imperial court really want to force all the people of Taiping County to death? No, not just Taiping County. This cold disaster affected the entire Qingzhou, and even the two neighboring states were also affected by the cold disaster. The court's tax increase could not be limited to one county. I am afraid that the entire Xia kingdom will have to increase the tax. With such a natural disaster, if taxes are still imposed, I'm afraid that the people of Qingzhou will soon be starving and have to eat their own children. That's right, it's a tax increase. Wu Han said bitterly, those damn officials don't even think about collecting taxes from the wealthy families, but only know how to squeeze money out of us common people. Damn it. Chen Dao frowned. Xinjia village belonged to Taiping County. Even the people in the county town had to pay more taxes. Xinjia village might not be able to escape the fate of tax increase. The reason why Xinjia village had not heard the news of tax increase was probably because the government was short of manpower and had not yet collected the taxes outside the county town. Chen Daobian felt a chill run down his spine at the thought of the tax increase in Xinjia village. Given Xinjia village's situation, he feared there wouldn't be a single household in the entire village that could afford 2 taels of silver. Brother Wu, I wonder what will happen if we can't pay this tax. Chen Dao asked. What else can I do? Wu Han said without hesitation. The government has already made it clear that any family that fails to pay taxes will have their entire family taken away and sent north as exiles. Exile. Chen Dao was shocked. Xia country was not the China of his previous life. The treatment of soldiers in Xia country was extremely poor. Of course, for the people who can't survive, being exiled can barely provide them with enough food, and it is a way to survive. But things are not that simple. Wu Han said that this time the exiles would go to the north, and in the north, the Xia kingdom was fighting with the barbarians. The battle was extremely brutal, with countless casualties every day. Going to the north as an exile would not only make it difficult for them to die on the battlefield, but it would also be a problem whether they could arrive safely. After all, the north is thousands of miles away from Qingzhou. Such a long journey is enough to cause many exiled civilians to die on the road. This really is the officials forcing the people to rebel. Chen Dao couldn't help but sigh. This tax increase really left no way for the people to survive. The people who were already facing the cold disaster were already unable to get enough food, and now there was another tax increase. If you can't pay the tax, you will be sent to the north as a soldier and face the risk of dying on the road at any time. It would be really unfair if the people didn't rebel. Brother Wu, didn't the government say they would collect 1 stone of grain? Can we hand it over in the form of rice husks or other grains? Chen Dao asked with a turn of his eyes. If rice bran can be used to cope with the problem, then this tax increase will be bearable for ordinary people. Chapter 36, Girl's Blessing. Rice husks. Wu Han gave a bitter laugh and said, Brother Chun, you're overthinking it. How could the government leave us such a loophole? The tax collectors have already said that this tax increase must only apply to sorghum, wheat, and rice. All other grains will be disregarded. Chen Dao was silent. These 3 types of grains were the most expensive sold in the grain stores nowadays. Even though he was living the best life in Qinjia village nowadays, he couldn't afford even a stone of grain. If we can't provide food, we will be sent to the north as exiles. Chen Dao felt cold all over. This imperial court really didn't give him any chance to survive. Brother Wu, have you paid the tax? How can I afford it? Wu Han sighed and said, the 1-month deadline given by the government is getting closer and closer. If I can't pay the tax, I'm afraid my whole family will be forced to serve in the army. Chen Dao opened his mouth, not knowing what to say, so he simply changed the subject and said, Brother Wu, I'm planning to buy some gray-feathered chickens this time. Do you have any for sale? Of course I will buy it. When Wu Han heard that Chen Dao wanted to buy chicken, his eyes immediately lit up. Brother Chen, how many do you want to buy? I can give you a discount. Of course, the gray-feathered chicken was not what Chen Dao wanted to buy, but what Chunda wanted. Chunda went to the city to sell white-feathered chickens this time in order to earn money and buy more gray-feathered chickens to raise. On the way to East Market, Chen Dao had already discussed this with Chunda. So after hearing Wu Han's question, Chen Dao replied, I brought 2 taels of silver this time, and I plan to use it all to buy gray-feathered chickens. Brother Wu, Can you help me calculate how much I can buy? 2 taels of silver. Wuhan counted on his fingers and said, a gray feathered chicken costs about 150 coins these days. With 2 taels of silver, I could buy about 13 of them. I don't have enough here, but it's okay. Brother Chun, wait a minute. I'll go talk to another stall owner and help you. Not long after, Wuhan returned with 3 chicken vendors and said to Chen Dao, Brother Chun, it's settled. There are 13 chickens in total, and you'll get 150 coins for each. Okay, let's trade. Soon, the 2 parties completed the transaction. Chen Dao paid 1,950 copper coins and bought 13 gray-feathered chickens. After placing the chicken cage on the donkey cart, Chen Dao and his group came to the grain store in the East Market. Food prices have risen again. Chen Dao couldn't help but frown when he walked into the grain store. The price of grain was 2 to 3 cents more expensive than the last time he came to the county town. Sir, would you like to buy some food? The clerk in the grain store warmly welcomed Chen Dao into the store. Chen Dao looked at the grain prices and asked, Hey, why are the grain prices so high again? Sir, you don't know. The waiter responded, The price of food in this city is rising every day. Our prices are already the most reasonable. Chen Dao nodded noncommittally. After memorizing all the grain prices, he proposed the purchase quantity. I need 50 kilograms of white flour and 100 kilograms of sorghum flour. White flour now costs 16 won per pound, and sorghum flour costs 12 won per pound. 50 pounds of white flour and 100 pounds of sorghum flour are just enough to spend the 2 taels of silver earned from selling chickens. As for the money to buy blood-clotting fruit later, Chen Dao still has a few hundred copper coins in his hand, which should be enough in theory. Okay. The clerk started working quickly and soon loaded a total of 150 kilograms of grain onto the donkey cart outside the store. Sir, take care. As the waiter said goodbye, the donkey cart started slowly and arrived at Baikeatang, a place Chen Dao had visited once before. Inside Baikeatang, the old shopkeeper was calculating behind the counter, while Su Qiaoshi was sorting herbs. Young Su Qiaoshi had sharper senses after all. She immediately noticed Chen Dao entering the store and hurriedly stepped forward to ask, Sir, are you here to see a doctor or buy medicine? Chen Dao glanced at Su Qiaoshi and had to say that the granddaughter of the drugstore owner was really pretty. Not only was she cute and well-behaved, but her voice was also very pleasant, which made people feel a liking for her. Buy medicine, Chen Dao replied. I'd like to buy some blood-clotting fruit. Do you have any in your store? Some. The shopkeeper sitting behind the counter said, 1 blood-clotting fruit is 18 coins. How many do you need, sir? 18 coins. This price is similar to what Chen Dao learned from Liang before. After thinking for a moment, Chen Dao said 30 pieces. Sir, please wait a moment. I'll get it for you. Su Qiaoshi ran into the backyard of the pharmacy and came out soon after with a package. She handed it to Chen Dao. There are 30 blood-clotting fruits in here. Sir, you can count them. Good. Chen Dao opened the package and counted them. After confirming that there were indeed 30 coins, he took out 540 copper coins from the inner layer of his clothes and handed them to Su Qiaoshi. When they took the copper coins, their fingers touched. Su Qiaoshi's pretty face turned red, but Chen Dao didn't feel anything. He quickly left the store with the blood-clotting fruit. Grandfather! Su Qiaoshi looked at Chen Dao's departing back and said, Is this young man surnamed Chen a warrior? When Chen Dao came to the store before, Su Qiaoshi heard Chen to call him, so she knew that Chen Dao's surname was Chen. It shouldn't be. The shopkeeper, Su Shihua, shook his head and said, Warriors won't buy medicinal herbs like blood-clotting fruit. Although Su Shihua was only the owner of a small pharmacy, he was knowledgeable and knew very well that warriors simply looked down upon medicinal herbs like blood-clotting fruit. Not to mention warriors. Even the apprentice-level quasi-warriors who are practicing martial arts in martial arts schools look down on the blood-clotting fruit. Otherwise, the price of the blood-clotting fruit would not be so cheap. He's probably just a farmer's kid who wants to be a warrior, Su Shihua concluded. Judging from Chen Dao's attire, he guessed he was just a farmer's kid. As for why he bought medicinal herbs like the blood-clotting fruit, most likely, he is just an ambitious farm boy who hopes to become a warrior by using cheap herbs, such as blood-clotting fruit, to increase qi and blood. Really? Su Qiaoshi looked out the door. For some reason, she was particularly curious about the boy whom she had only met twice, because the boy's eyes were completely different from those of others. As she helps her grandfather work in the pharmacy, she is quite knowledgeable. The people who come to the pharmacy can be roughly divided into two categories. One category is poor people. These people often have numb eyes and restrained expressions, and they usually only buy cheap herbal medicines. The other category was wealthy families or warriors. These people were dressed luxuriously, and there was always a hint of covetousness in their eyes when they looked at her. As for Chun Dao, his eyes gave Su Qiaoxi an especially different feeling. When Chun Dao looked at her, there was only admiration in his eyes, nothing else, and he would quickly look away. This made Su Qiaoxi feel particularly comfortable each time she got along with Chun Dao, even though she had only met Chun Dao twice and had only exchanged a few words. I hope you can become a warrior as you wish. Su Qiaoxi gave the most sincere blessings to the strange boy in her heart. Chapter 37 Steamed Buns. The donkey cart drove out of the county town, and the flour bags and chicken coops piled on the cart attracted the greedy eyes of the refugees. Many people lose their moral bottom line when they are hungry. If possible, the refugees outside the city would not mind robbing Chun Dao and his group. Fortunately, Chun Dao and his group were all young and strong. The bow and arrow in Chun Dao's hand and Chun Cheng's big stature were very intimidating, which prevented the refugees from rushing forward and robbing the things on the car. Damn it, the looks of these refugees outside the city are getting more and more scary. After getting a little further away from the city gate, Chun Si, who was driving the car, relaxed his tense body a little and exhaled. The pairs of hungry wolf-like eyes outside the city were really stressful. Hurry and drive back to Qinjia village. Chunda glanced around with sharp eyes, alert to the bandits who might suddenly appear from the sides of the official road at any time. Chun Cheng smiled innocently and said to Chun Dao, "Don't worry, Brother Dao. I will definitely keep you safe." Chun Dao glanced at Chun Cheng's heavy body and nodded, without any doubt about Chun Cheng's words. Chun Cheng, who was 1.8 meters tall, was no different from a giant in this era when people generally could not get enough food. His presence could reduce many unnecessary dangers. After all, whether they are refugees or bandits, they're all discerning and will pick on the weak. Bandits generally don't want to provoke a big man like Chun Cheng, who is 1.8 meters tall and has an extremely strong physique. Qinjia village. Not far from Chun Dao's construction site, villagers were gathered together chatting. Ever since Chun Dao's family started building their house, this place has become the only entertainment venue for the villagers of Qinjia village. Every day, when the sun rises higher and the weather gets a little warmer, the villagers will come out of their homes and gather nearby to watch the fun. Why aren't Daojur's family working today? I saw Chanda borrow the village chief's donkey cart this morning. He must be heading into the city. Going into the city? What for? What else could he do? I guess he's probably going to buy food. It's freezing cold. Where are Chunda and Dao Gur going to get the money to buy food? He must be raising chickens, right? My house is very close to Chen's. I can hear the frequent crowing of roosters every day. He must have a lot of chickens at home. Even though the construction site was empty and no one was working, it couldn't stop the enthusiasm of the villagers. They gathered in groups of 3 or 4 and talked about gossip related to Chunda and Chun Dao. Chunda and Dao Gur are really capable. They can still find money to buy food these days. An old villager sighed with envy. His family situation was very bad, so he was particularly envious of Chun Dao's family's life. Brother Dao is really amazing. A woman said, "A young boy can bring so much food to the family. I wish my boy could be so capable." Yeah, I think Xiaofei from Daojur's family has gained weight recently. How can you not get fat if you eat sorghum noodles every day? Chun Cheng and his gang have paid for it, and they eat a lot every day. Just as the villagers were talking about it, a donkey cart appeared in everyone's sight. Everyone immediately turned their eyes to the donkey cart. Chunda and the others are back. There's a lot of stuff on the truck. It looks like wheat flour and sorghum flour. This is too rich. They even have white flour to eat. It's not just flour. There are also quite a few chickens on the truck. Facing the envious gazes of the villagers, Chun Si, who was driving the bicycle, couldn't help but straighten his chest, feeling proud. Chun Jiang, Chun Cheng, Chun Mu, and Chun Shi also held their heads high and chests puffed out like proud roosters. "Park the car in front of my house." Chunda said something to Chun Si, who was driving, and Chun Si nodded, drove the donkey cart to stop in front of Chen's house, and then unloaded the flour, sorghum flour, and chicken cages on the cart and moved them into Chen's house. The villagers looked at the unloaded goods from afar, and the envy in their eyes became more and more intense. I took a look, and there were at least a dozen chickens in the chicken coop. More than a dozen chickens? How much meat would that require? There are at least 100 kilograms of flour. Hiss. The Chun family's life is so good that even the landlords can't compare to it. It would be great if I could help the Chun Dao family with their work. In the front yard of the Chun family, Li Ping and He Tzulian opened the front door and looked at the house they had moved into, and a smile involuntarily appeared on the corners of their mouths. Although the supplies bought this time were far less than last time, the bags of food still made the two women feel at ease. Soon, 150 kilograms of flour and chicken cages were all moved into the house. Chunda drove the donkey cart to return them to the village chief, while Li Ping and He Tzulian warmly entertained Chun Cheng and the other four. It was called a warm welcome, but in reality, it was just a meal of porridge with some hot water. But even so, Chun Cheng and others did not show any disgust. They wolfed down the porridge and then stood up to say goodbye. "Auntie, let's go home first. We'll come back to work tomorrow." "Goodbye, Auntie, Brother Dao." Everyone walked slower. After seeing Chun Cheng and the other three off, Li Ping returned to the house and asked Chen Dao, "Dower, how much grain did you buy this time?" "Not much," Chen Dao replied. "A total of 50 kilograms of white flour and 100 kilograms of sorghum flour. Only 150 pounds. Li Ping couldn't help but frown. 150 kilograms of food seemed like a lot, but it wouldn't last for a few days. Don't forget, the family still had to provide daily meals for Chun Cheng and others. "Why did you buy all white flour and sorghum flour this time?" Li Ping couldn't help but ask, feeling that Chun Dao was being too cunning. These days, who would buy only white flour and sorghum flour? "Don't worry, Mom. I know what's going on." Chun Dao didn't explain to Li Ping, but changed the subject and said, "By the way, Mom, do you know how to make steamed buns?" "Stamid bun." Li Ping asked, "Are these the white flour buns sold in the city?" "Right." Chun Dao nodded. The main reason why he bought flour this time, besides the fact that the price of flour increased less, was that he wanted to change his taste. In his previous life, Chun Dao preferred white rice as a staple food, but the reason he liked white rice was because it came with plenty of side dishes. However, after coming to this world, every day he only had white rice without any side dishes. In this case, Chun Dao naturally didn't like the monotonous white rice so much and naturally thought of staple food, such as steamed buns. When eaten without other side dishes, steamed buns naturally taste much better than white rice. I've seen food called steamed buns in the city. He Tzulian, who once went to the county town with Chunda, said, "They are very expensive. One steamed bun costs 1 penny. An adult needs at least 3 steamed buns to be full." Chapter 38, The Fragrant Smell. 1 penny. Chen Dao couldn't help but smile bitterly. A steamed bun costing 1 cent was a thing of the past. With the skyrocketing price of grain in the county, steamed buns in the city were now sold for 3 cents each. Of course, Chen Dao didn't say anything about this, but instead asked He Tzulian, "Annie, can you cook this kind of food?" "How could I possibly know that?" He Tzulian shook her head like a rattle. The making techniques of these steamed buns are the unique skills of the hotel chefs. How could they be taught to outsiders? Well, Chen Dao was speechless. In his opinion, steamed buns were not a difficult food to make. It was just a matter of kneading the dough, letting it ferment successfully, and then steaming it. I never thought that this was a unique skill in this world. "Mother." Chen Dao turned to look at Li Ping and said, "We can try making steamed buns." "Can you do it?" Li Ping asked suspiciously. "Probably." Chen Dao didn't dare to guarantee that he could make steamed buns. After all, yeast, before artificially extracted yeast was available, it could only be obtained through natural fermentation, which was still quite difficult. Chen Dao went to the kitchen with Li Ping and He Tzulian and first taught the two how to knead the dough. After kneading the dough, Chen Dao asked the two to put the dough in a wooden basin, add some water, and then put the basin in the kitchen, waiting for the yeast to multiply in the dough. "Is that all right?" Li Ping asked as she looked at the dough in the basin. "Let's wait and see tomorrow morning." Chen Dao vaguely remembered that yeast preferred a warm, humid environment. He had already created a humid environment by adding water to a wooden basin. As for a warm environment, the temperature in the kitchen is still relatively high, which should be enough for yeast to reproduce. "All right," Li Ping half believed and half doubted. "Then let's eat first." At this time, Chen Dao also returned. After the two families had dinner together, they went back to their rooms to rest. The next day, Chen Dao, who woke up at the sound of Xiao Hei's rooster crowing, went to the kitchen immediately. Li Ping and He Tilian were also in the kitchen at this time, observing the dough in the wooden basin. Dower is here. Li Ping quickly waved towards Chen Dao. Come over here and take a look. The dough seems to have gotten bigger. Upon hearing this, Chen Dao's eyes lit up, and he quickly came to the wooden basin. He saw that, just as Li Ping said, the dough that was only as big as a human head yesterday had expanded almost twice as much. This meant the dough fermented successfully. Mom, Annie, let's start making steamed buns now. Chen Dao directed Li Ping and He Tilian to knead the dough to expel the air inside, and then divide the dough into small pieces. Then they could start steaming the buns. Of course, the Chen family didn't have a steamer, but other things could be used instead. After leaving a small piece of fermented dough as the material for making steamed buns next time, Chen Dao found a round wooden board with a hollow middle. First added some water to the bottom of the pot, then covered the pot with the wooden board, and then placed the small pieces of dough on the wooden board, and finally covered the pot. It will be steamed in a moment. Chen Dao covered the pot and said to Li Ping and He Tilian with a smile, Dower, this steamed bun, can it really be made? Li Ping asked with some doubt. It will definitely work. Chen Dao said firmly that the most difficult step in making steamed buns is fermentation. Now that the dough has been fermented successfully, how could it fail? Mom, you guys watch the pot? I'm going to feed the chickens. Chen Dao didn't say much, just left the kitchen and went to the front yard. The number of chicks has increased again. After checking the number of chickens in the chicken coop, Chen Dao's face showed joy again. When he went to the city yesterday, there were only 5 chicks, but now there are 7. At this hatching speed, getting rich is definitely no longer a dream. But Chen Dao looked at the chirping chicks in the chicken coop and began to consider a question in his mind. Should he start raising blood feather chickens now? Chen Dao has already obtained the blood-clotting fruit, the material for cultivating blood feather chickens, but Chen Dao looked at the 3 adult yellow-feathered chickens. If all 3 yellow-feathered chickens were raised into blood-feathered chickens, it would inevitably delay the reproduction and hatching of the chicks. However, if the chicks are raised to become blood-feathered chickens, the result would be more harm than good. After all, yellow-feathered chickens not only have a short incubation time, but also a relatively short growth cycle. The 3 chicks that were hatched first have now grown a lot larger, equivalent to 1/3 of the size of an adult yellow-feathered chicken. Why not wait until these chicks are adults before considering breeding blood-feather chickens? At the same time Chen Dao made the decision, Xiaohei also came to Chen Dao's feet and rubbed Chen Dao's trouser legs to beg for food. Got it, you foodie. Chen Dao shook his head and hurried back into the house to take out sorghum and rice bran to feed Xiaohei and the yellow-feathered chicken. After feeding the chickens, Chen Dao returned to the kitchen, only to find that the lid of the pot had been opened by Li Ping, and inside the pot, a row of plump white steamed buns were clearly visible. Is this a steamed bun? Li Ping sniffed the aroma wafting from the pot, and her throat rolled. It smells so good. The aroma of this steamed bun is even more tempting than white rice. Not to mention Li Ping. Even He Tilian looked at the steamed buns in the pot with shining eyes, and almost couldn't help but reach out and grab one to eat. Success. Chen Dao came to the stove with a happy face, his mouth watering. After eating bland white rice for several days, he missed the taste of steamed buns very much. Rice! Li Ping turned to look at Chen Dao and said, Are you planning to give these buns to Chengguer and the others? The attentive Li Ping had noticed long ago that there were a lot of steamed buns in the pot, and she and Chen Dao's family could not finish them all. Yes. Isn't this a bit too wasteful? Li Ping looked at the steamed buns in the pot with a face full of reluctance. She was not a stingy person, but she still felt that this kind of food was a bit too luxurious for Chun Cheng and his big belly men to eat. Mom, listen to me. Chen Dao explained, sorghum flour can also be used to make these steamed buns. From now on, we can just use sorghum flour to make steamed buns for Chengguer and the others. And don't you think that eating steamed buns can actually reduce our food consumption? Yeah. Li Ping obviously didn't understand what was going on. He Tilian beside her said thoughtfully, I've eaten steamed buns before. They fill me up quickly, but they also make me hungry quickly. Is that what you mean, Daoj? Almost. Chen Dao nodded. Anyone who has eaten steamed buns knows that this stuff is fluffy and fills you up quickly. Using this stuff as food for Chen Cheng's group of laborers would definitely save a lot of food than porridge, and Chen Cheng's group would definitely not be dissatisfied with it. After all, compared to porridge, steamed buns taste much better. Chapter 39, Delicious Steamed Buns, Envious Villagers. All right. Li Ping nodded in agreement, and then the three of them put the steamed buns into the wooden barrel, covered it with a piece of cloth, and carried the barrel to the construction site. At the construction site, Chun Sheng and 5 others had arrived early and were taking shelter under a tree. Chunda was standing aside, not knowing what he was thinking about. Not far away, many early rising villagers had gathered in groups of 3 or 4, intending to watch the fun. But at this moment, Chen Dao, Li Ping, and He Zuilian came over carrying wooden barrels. Chun Sheng and the other 4's eyes lit up quickly, and they hurriedly surrounded them. Is dinner ready? Chun Shi asked with shining eyes. He was as enthusiastic about eating as Chun Sheng. You are blessed today. Li Ping pulled away the cloth on the wooden barrel, and the next moment, a rich fragrance wafted out. Smells so good. A villager watching the excitement, not far away, immediately swallowed his saliva and said, "What is this smell? It smells so good. What kind of food is this? Could it be white rice?" "Of course not. I've eaten white rice, and it doesn't taste like this." "What's that?" The villagers who were watching the fun stood on tiptoe, trying to get a clear view of the food in the barrel. But because of the distance, they could only vaguely see a hint of white and had no idea what it was. Chun Sheng and others, who were closer, were looking at the snow-white, round buns in the wooden barrel and swallowing their saliva. "Is this a steamed bun?" Chen Si, as someone who had been to the city many times, recognized the steamed buns at the first sight. "What is a steamed bun?" Chun Sheng couldn't help asking, and at the same time he swallowed his saliva and almost couldn't help but reach out and grab the steamed buns in the wooden barrel. "Mantu is a good thing," Chun Jiang explained. "This is a dish made with white flour. It's sold for 3 cents each in the city now." 3 cents each. The 3 brothers Chun Sheng, Chun Shi, and Chun Mu were stunned. The steamed buns in the bucket were only the size of a fist, yet they were selling for 3 cents each? Could it be that these were food for the gods? "Come and eat." Chun Dao watched the performance of the 3 brothers Chun Sheng with a smile, grabbed a steamed bun from the bucket, and handed it to Chun Sheng. "Brother Cheng, how does it taste?" Chun Sheng looked at the snow-white steamed bun in front of him, then glanced at his own dark palms, and couldn't help but take a step back. "Brother Cheng, this food is too expensive. I dare not eat it." "Right." The 2 Chanshu brothers also nodded like chicks pecking at rice. They really couldn't afford to eat steamed buns that cost 2 cents each. "If you don't eat it, then I will." Chun Dao stuffed the steamed bun directly into his mouth and took a bite. The unique wheat aroma burst out in his mouth. Chun Dao couldn't help but squint his eyes slightly, feeling the aroma of the steamed bun. I have to say that steamed buns taste much better than white rice, and their soft texture is extremely satisfying. Well, seeing Chun Dao bite off half of the steamed bun in one bite, Chun Sheng opened his mouth, feeling a little eager to try, but he still forced himself to suppress his desire. In his opinion, a steamed bun costing 3 cents was too precious, and he was somewhat discouraged. "Hurry up and eat, Chengji." After swallowing a mouthful of steamed bun, Chun Dao patted Chun Sheng's arm and said, "All this food is prepared for you. If you don't eat it, won't it be wasted?" "Is it really prepared for us?" Chun Shi asked in disbelief. "Certainly." Chun Dao nodded affirmatively. Seeing this, everyone no longer hesitated. Chun Jiang quickly took a steamed bun from Li Ping and took a bite. Oh, what a nice smell. The unique wheat aroma burst out in the mouth. Chun Jiang chewed the steamed bun in his mouth carefully and felt the fragrance becoming stronger and stronger. At the same time, a unique sweetness spread in his mouth. "This steamed bun is so delicious." Chun Si also praised it highly. Although he had been to the city, he had never eaten steamed buns. Now that he tasted the steamed buns, he understood why the steamed buns in the city were sold at such a high price. The taste was even better than white rice. "I'll have one too." Chun Sheng took a steamed bun, ate it in one bite, and a look of satisfaction immediately appeared on his face. The rich wheat aroma of the steamed buns and the sweetness produced when chewing made Chun Sheng squint his eyes slightly. He felt that this was the most delicious food in the world, no doubt about it. "Auntie, please give me another one." Chun Sheng quickly finished a steamed bun, reached out and took another one, and continued making it. "One more. One more." After eating 5 steamed buns in a row, Chun Sheng felt a little full. He touched his belly and said, "These steamed buns are delicious. I can eat 5 more." "Don't worry," There are plenty of steamed buns. Chun Dao smiled and handed Chun Chung a glass of water. Brother Chung, drink some water first. Eating only steamed buns is too dry and it's easy to choke. Thank you, Brother Dao. Chun Chung was touched. Chun Dao was really good to him. She didn't mind that he ate a lot and took care of him in every way. At this time, he was completely devoted to Chun Dao. Chun Shi and Chun Mu were also moved when they looked at the young boy Chun Dao. Chun Dao was really kind to the three brothers. Not only did he give them steamed buns that cost 2 cents each, but he also worried that the eldest brother would choke. At this moment, the three brothers couldn't help but feel willing to die for Chun Dao. It seems like they're eating steamed buns. Not far away, a villager who was watching finally recognized the food in Chun Chung and his friend's hands, and suddenly his eyes flashed with strong envy. Steamed buns? They actually eat steamed buns. This food is better than the damn landlord's. Fuck it. Why didn't Daojura's family ask me to build a house? I want to eat steamed buns too. Isn't this what a god's life would be like? Not only do we eat sorghum noodles every day, but we also have steamed buns. I've lived for over 30 years and never eaten a steamed bun. The villagers looked at Chun Chung and others who were eating voraciously, and the envy in their eyes almost turned into reality. They had only seen and heard of steamed buns, but had never tasted them. In their opinion, this kind of food was something that only respectable people in the city could afford, but at this moment, Chun Chung and his companions were swallowing one steamed bun after another in front of them. How could they not be envious? Especially when I think about how my family had to eat bran every meal, while Chun Chung and his friends were eating steamed buns that tasted better than white rice. It would be fine if there was no comparison, but once the comparison was made, the sense of disparity instantly made these villagers feel sick. Most importantly, standing not far away, they could just smell the aroma of steamed buns wafting through the air. That overbearing weed aroma instantly made many villagers who had just finished breakfast feel extremely hungry. P.S. Today is the 5th update. I'm asking for some free gifts and a good review. Thank you all readers. Chapter 40 Precious Food. The villagers swallowed their saliva and looked on enviously. Chun Chung ate the steamed buns one bite at a time and enjoyed them very much. After eating 10 steamed buns, Chun Chung said with a satisfied look, "I'm full. These steamed buns are the best food I've ever had." Hearing this, Chun Shi and Chun Mu nodded in agreement. For them, who had not eaten meat for several years and had hardly eaten white rice, steamed buns were indeed more delicious than any other food in the world. Chun Jiang and Chun Si didn't quite agree with Chun Cheng's statement, but they were full of praise for the taste of the steamed buns. The soft texture and sweet taste made them extremely satisfied. Of course, steamed buns also have their disadvantages. That is, if you eat them alone, they are too dry and you have to eat them with water. Also, the steamed buns were delicious, but they filled people up too quickly. The 4 strong young men, Chun Shi, Chun Mu, Chun Si, and Chun Jiang, only ate 3 each before they were too full to eat anymore. In other words, Chun Chung, a big-bellied man, had a big appetite and could eat 10 in a row. Are you all full? Chun Dao took a look at the steamed buns in the bucket. Sure enough, steamed buns were easier to fill up than porridge. Usually, Chun Chung and his friends could finish a bucket of porridge, but this time they couldn't finish the whole bucket of steamed buns. There were only about 10 steamed buns left in the bucket. "I'm full." Chun Chung scratched his head and said with a simple smile, "Thank you, Brother Chung, for giving us steamed buns. You deserve this." Chun Dao responded with a smile. At this time, everyone including him had eaten the steamed buns, and Chun Dao did not plan to keep the remaining 10 steamed buns. "Sheng Yi." Chun Dao thought for a moment and said, "There are still 10 steamed buns left. Each of you can take 2 back home to give to your family." As soon as Chun Dao said this, the 5 people's eyes lit up. Chun Chung said a little embarrassedly, "Brother Dao, isn't this a bit inappropriate? It's already very kind of you to feed us. How can we have the nerve to take it home?" In the eyes of the honest and straightforward Chun Chung, being able to eat a full meal at Chun Dao's house was already a great advantage for Chun Dao, not to mention that the food was a precious food like steamed buns. If he took the steamed buns home to eat, this is a bit greedy. "Yeah, Brother Dao, how can we have the nerve to eat and take at the same time?" Chun Shi also said that although his family was poor, the 3 brothers were relatively simple in nature and were somewhat reluctant to take advantage of others by eating and taking things from them. "Fine." Chen Dao waved his hand and said, "Steamed buns will go bad if left out for too long, so why not take them home and eat them? Here, 2 each. Take them home for your families to try, and then come back to work." To the best of his ability, Chen Dao is still willing to win the hearts of the villagers. The 4 people, including Chen Sheng, who work at his home, are all relatively honest people. If he shows them some kindness, they will definitely remember it. So Chen Dao stuffed 2 steamed buns into the hands of each of them and asked them to take them back to their families to try. This okay. Chen Sheng hesitated for a while, but finally chose to take the 2 steamed buns. In fact, he also wanted to let his family taste this delicious food, especially his mother. Chen Sheng has witnessed his mother's hard work since he was a child, so naturally he hopes that his mother can eat well. Soon, Chen Sheng and the other 4 each took 2 steamed buns and ran back home quickly. The villagers who were watching the excitement nearby looked at their running figures and looked at each other in confusion. What are Chen Sheng and the others doing? Aren't they going to work after dinner? I knew these guys wouldn't work hard. If I were to ask you, Brother Dao might as well hire me. I work hard and eat less than Chen Sheng. I just saw Dao Gooder stuff 2 steamed buns into each of their mouths. Could he be asking them to take them home? That must be the case. Damn it, the 3 Chen Sheng brothers are so shameless. They're taking both food and money. Damn it, why can't I find such a good, strenuous job? The villagers, who had figured out the whole story through guesswork, were so enraged that they wished they could replace Chen Sheng and his 4 companions. There is no other way. In the eyes of the villagers, a job that can both provide enough food and bring steamed buns home for their families is no different from working for the emperor. Chen Sheng's home. Lu Yan is cooking this morning's meal in the kitchen. To people on Earth, food often refers to something like rice, but in Chen Sheng's family, food is actually handfuls of rice bran and bran powder. At this time, Lu Yan was stirring a paste made of rice bran powder in the pot. Some rice bran that had not been ground into powder was floating on the paste. This was the meal for the 3 underage children in Lu Yan's family and Lu Yan this morning. "Mom, we're back." But at this moment, Lu Yan's ears moved and she heard a loud voice coming from outside the house. "Why is Cheng Ji back?" Lu Yan's heart tightened. At this time, Chen Sheng and the others were working at Chen Dao's house. Why would he run back home at this time? Could it be that? Just when Lu Yan had bad thoughts in her mind, the 3 Chen Sheng brothers ran into the kitchen. "Mom, we're back. Why are you back?" Lu Yan looked at the 3 happy Chen Sheng brothers, but there was no joy on her face. Instead, she felt heavy in her heart. Chen Sheng and the other 2 went to Chen Dao's house to help with the work, which relieved the family's considerable food pressure. However, the 3 of them went home early, which was contrary to their usual behavior. It was hard for Lu Yan not to have bad thoughts in her mind. "Mom, look what we brought back." Chen Sheng didn't notice Lu Yan's expression. Instead, he took out 2 snow-white steamed buns from his arms and handed them to Lu Yan as if they were treasures. "This is..." Lu Yan looked at the steamed buns in front of her, her face full of confusion. She had lived in Qinjia village for most of her life and had never left, so naturally she didn't recognize steamed buns as a food. Although she didn't recognize it, Lu Yan knew that the snow-white, fist-sized object in front of her must be edible because it had a sweet smell. "This is a steamed bun." Chen Shi also took out the 2 steamed buns he had been holding from his arms and excitedly showed off. "Mom, let me tell you, Brother Dao is really generous. He gave us steamed buns today. I heard that this kind of food sells for 3 cents each in the city. It's very expensive." 3 cents each? Lu Yan's hand, which had taken the steamed bun, paused in midair. Judging from the feel of the food in her hand, it weighed less than 2 taels, yet cost 3 cents each. For Chen Sheng's family, 3 cents could buy a pound of bran flour. If eaten sparingly, a pound of bran flour could sustain the family's 2 children for a day, while the value of a steamed bun was equivalent to a day's ration for the 2 children. This is more than just expensive. In Lu Yan's opinion, even the emperor in the capital city eats no more than this, right? Chapter 41 shocked Lu Yan. "This is so precious." Lu Yan stuffed the steamed bun back into Chen Sheng's hands and said, "Cheng-er, please return this food to Dao-er. It's too precious. Mother can't eat it." "Mother." Chen Sheng took the steamed bun and said, "Don't worry about eating it. Brother Dao's family doesn't lack this at all. When we were working, Brother Dao let us eat as much steamed bun as we wanted until we were full." "What?" Lu Yan's eyes widened and she was stunned. The steamed buns that cost 3 cents each are not only provided to Chen Guer and his friends, but they can also eat as much as they want? That's it. Chun Shi, who was standing by, helped explain. These steamed buns were brought back by Dao. Mom, try them. They're delicious. Chamu also said, yes. Mom, try it. Yeah. Seeing that the three brothers had been persuading her, Lu Yin took the steamed bun from Chun Cheng's hand half-believingly, tore off a small piece, and put it in her mouth to chew carefully. Mom, how does it taste? The three brothers looked at Lu Yin with anticipation. It's delicious. Lu Yin nodded seriously. This steamed bun is more delicious than any meal I've ever eaten. Is over 40 years old, has eaten bran flour the most in her life. In the past, during peaceful times, she could occasionally eat a mouthful of white rice. However, even white rice tastes far inferior to steamed buns. I'll put these buns away and give them to your brothers and sisters later. Although the steamed buns were delicious, Lu Yin did not eat too much. Instead, she carefully put away the 5.5 steamed buns, intending to save them for the three children at home. Seeing this, the three Chun Chung brothers didn't say anything. Their mother had always been like this, always leaving the delicious food for her children. After putting away the steamed buns, Lu Yin said to the three brothers, Brother Dao is so good to you. You must not be lazy when working at his house. Otherwise, I will not forgive you. Don't worry, Mom. We know what's going on. About a quarter of an hour later, the three Chun Chung brothers, as well as Chun Jiang and Chun Si, all returned to Chun Dao's construction site and began construction work in full swing. Chun Dao also participated in it, but heavy work was not what Chun Dao was good at. After just moving the wood for a while, Chun Dao became out of breath. This body is still too thin. Chun Dao sighed lightly. He was only 15 years old now, and because he had not eaten enough for many years, his body was very thin and he could not do much physical work at all. Brother Dao, go and have a rest. We'll do it. Chun Xing noticed that Chun Dao was not physically fit and hurriedly asked Chun Dao to rest. Chun Dao nodded, returned to the Chun family's home, lay on the bed, and thought about the future. Ever since his last trip to the county and his conversation with Wu Han, Chun Dao had often thought about the imperial court's tax increase. According to Chun Dao's speculation, this tax increase will definitely not be limited to the county town. Sooner or later, it will be applied to villages outside the county town. By then, the villages outside the county town will suffer. Even the people in the city cannot afford to pay a stone of grain, let alone the suffering of the rural areas outside the county town. If they fail to pay the grain, their entire family will be sent into exile. This punishment made Chun Dao feel a chill. He was not worried about his own family not being able to pay the grain, but he couldn't help but worry about Chun Cheng and other villagers. Given the current situation in Taiping County, at least 90% of the people are unable to pay a single stone of grain. Once the government forces these people too much, it is hard to say that there will not be chaos, or even some people will rise up in rebellion. When reading history in his previous life, history books often described peasant rebellions as peasant uprisings. Every time Chun Dao saw a peasant uprising, he would feel very relieved, but that was from the perspective of a future person. And now, however, Chun Dao had to experience the peasant uprising in person, which was completely different from what he saw in history books. Once someone rebelled and a war broke out, the ones who suffered the most were always the grassroots people like him. It's time to think of a solution. Chun Dao lay on the bed, wrapped tightly in the quilt, resisting the cold wind while thinking about countermeasures. Before I knew it, it was dusk. At the construction site, Chun Cheng and the other four were already starting. Fortunately, at this time, Li Ping and He Zulian came over carrying wooden buckets filled with food. Aunt, Chun Shi came to the rice bucket and asked in a flattering tone, will dinner still be steamed buns? After tasting the steamed buns, Chun Shi has completely fallen in love with them, and his love for porridge has greatly decreased. It's steamed buns. Li Ping nodded slightly. Chun Shi and the other four immediately showed joy on their faces and looked at the rice bucket that Li Ping had uncovered with surprise. As the cloth covering the rice bucket was removed, a rich fragrance emanated, and plump steamed buns appeared in the sight of Chun Cheng and others. It's really a steamed bun. Chun Cheng took the steamed bun that Li Ping handed him and asked suspiciously, Annie, why is the color of this steamed bun different from this morning? The others also looked puzzled. The steamed buns in the morning were white, but the steamed buns in Chun Cheng's hand were yellowish. Of course, the fragrance emitted by the two was similar, and the taste was equally tempting. The steamed buns in the morning were made of white flour, but now they are made of sorghum flour. Li Ping explained with a smile that it was Chun Dao who told them that sorghum flour could also be used to make steamed buns. Under Chun Dao's guidance, Li Ping and He Tilian mixed the old dough left over from the morning with sorghum flour, fermented it quickly, and successfully made sorghum steamed buns. I see. Chun Chung suddenly realized it, and took a bite of half of the sorghum bun, chewing it with his cheeks moving. As the taste of the steamed bun spread in his mouth, a look of satisfaction appeared on Chun Cheng's face. The others also started to eat. Each of them grabbed a steamed bun and gobbled it up voraciously. These sorghum steamed buns seemed to taste better than white flour steamed buns. That's what I think too. Brother Dao is so kind to us. He even gives us steamed buns to eat. Everyone ate and praised Chun Dao. In their opinion at this moment, Chun Dao was definitely the best person to them in the village, no doubt about it. Because even their mother had never given them such delicious food, they're eating steamed buns again. Damn it, what kind of idyllic life are these big-bellied men like Chun Chung leading? The food is better than that of the landlords. I want to eat steamed buns too. Each meal is filled with steamed buns. Damn it, is this really how a human being should live? How much food does Brother Dao have? They're giving away such a precious food as steamed buns to big-bellied men like Chun Chung. Not far from the construction site, the villagers who were watching the excitement were drooling almost to the ground. They sniffed the aroma of steamed buns in the air and watched Chun Chung and others eat one steamed bun in one bite. It was complete torture for them. Chapter 42, Red Panda? Auntie, we're leaving first. After filling their stomachs with delicious steamed buns, Chun Chung and the other four said goodbye to Li Ping and returned home. Chunda also walked back home with Li Ping and He Tzuilian. At this time, in the Chen family's yard, Chun Dao was feeding the chickens. When he saw Chunda and the other two coming in, he hurriedly greeted them. Brother Dao, let's have an extra meal tonight. But at this moment, Chunda mysteriously took out a package from behind him. The package opened, revealing a small animal inside. What the hell? Chun Dao took a closer look and blurted out in surprise. It's a national treasure. But this animal has a reddish-brown fur that looks extremely soft, dotted with white stripes. Its eyes are round, shiny black, and surrounded by a circle of white fluff, as if it were wearing a pair of glasses. Its tail is particularly long and is covered with alternating thick and thin ring patterns. There are 9 sections in the pattern, which looks cute and beautiful. Is this a red panda? Chun Dao stared at the little animal in front of him with wide eyes. That's right, this animal was none other than the cute animal called the red panda in his previous life. In his previous life, Chun Dao often saw videos of red pandas on Douyin, so he was particularly familiar with the appearance of red pandas. He immediately recognized the creature that Chunda was preparing to use as a snack. Red panda? Chunda, who heard Chun Dao's exclamation, was puzzled and asked, "Isn't this a 9-segmented wolf?" Well, Chun Dao suddenly remembered that the red panda was the name given to this animal by China in the previous life. In many places, the red panda is commonly known as the 9-segmented wolf because its tail has 9 segments in layered colors. Uncle, where did you get this? Chun Dao looked at the timid red panda beside Chun Dao's feet and liked it more and more. In his previous life, Chun Dao wanted to raise a red panda more than once, but the conditions did not allow it, so he had to give up. This beast came running over here while I was chopping down trees. Chunda replied, "It's not afraid of strangers. It has been following me since it ran out of the woods. I thought it was a good piece of meat, so I brought it back and planned to kill it and eat it." Kill? Chun Dao twitched the corner of his mouth. It was such a cute little animal, and Chunda actually had the heart to kill it and eat its meat. He was indeed an old hunter. But when Chun Dao thought about it, he suddenly understood. For the people on Earth in the previous life, since they had no worries about food and drink, they naturally would not kill cute creatures like red pandas. But for the people in this world, eating meat is the most important thing. Whether the red panda is cute or not does not affect the fact that it is a piece of meat. However, although he understood it, Chun Dao was still reluctant to let Chunda kill the red panda. He walked over to the red panda, picked it up, and said, "Uncle, I like this red panda very much. Can you give it to me? I can exchange it for some eggs. You want to keep this 9-segmented wolf?" "Yes." "Then I'll give it to you." Chun Dao waved his hand and said, "As for the exchange of eggs, there's no need to mention it. It's just a beast, far less valuable than the secret method of raising white-feathered chickens you gave me." "Well, Chun Dao didn't say anything, because when Chunda decided to give the red panda to him, the red panda's advancement information appeared in his eyes. Red panda, characteristics, cute, adorable, and agile. Red panda advancement, Route 1. Feed Ironheart bamboo for 5 consecutive days, with a 50% chance of advancing to a swift wind red panda. Swift wind panda features. Moves like the wind, has relatively weak attack power, and its combat power is comparable to that of a 9th grade warrior. Red panda advancement, Route 2. Feeding blood coagulating fruit and blood jade bamboo leaves for 5 consecutive days will increase the chance of advancement to Iron Claw Red Panda. Features of the Iron Claw Red Panda: swift movements, sharp claws, and combat power comparable to an 8th grade warrior. Red pandas can actually advance. Chun Dao was both surprised and not surprised. During this period of time, he had roughly figured out the rules of his golden finger. He could see the advancement information of all the animals and plants that belonged to him. At this time, this little panda had been given to him by Chunda, so it was naturally his property. What really surprised Chun Dao was that the red panda's advancement was so powerful. Among the 2 advancement routes, the swift wind red panda in the first advancement route was comparable to a 9th grade warrior. The second advanced path, the Iron Claw Red Panda, is comparable to an 8th grade warrior. Blood-clotting fruit and blood jade bamboo leaves. Chun Dao's eyes gleamed. He already had the blood-clotting fruit, one of the 2 ingredients needed to advance to become an Iron Claw Red Panda. The only thing he lacked was the blood jade bamboo leaf. If I can gather all the materials and upgrade the red panda to an Iron Claw Red Panda, my safety will be even better guaranteed. Chun Dao has always lacked a sense of security since coming to this world. Although the black-footed chicken Xiao Hei that he raised before has increased his sense of security a little, the increase is ultimately limited. After all, Xiao Hei is too special and not suitable to appear in the sight of others. Imagine that when Chun Dao enters the city, Xiao Hei follows him with a cackling sound. This will immediately make Chun Dao the center of attention, and he will then be targeted by the powerful forces in the county. Compared to Xiao Hei, the red panda is less eye-catching. Although the red panda will also attract attention because of its cute appearance, it is better to have a red panda hanging on your body than a clucking chicken following behind you, right? Not to mention, after the red panda advances to the Iron Claw Red Panda, its combat power is comparable to that of an 8th grade warrior. There are very few 8th grade warriors in the county. With the protection of the Iron Claw Red Panda, which is equivalent to an 8th grade warrior, Chun Dao's own safety issues will be completely solved. What a cute little panda. Chun Dao squinted his eyes and gently stroked the soft hair on the red panda's head, feeling very happy. The red panda also seemed to like being petted very much. A comfortable look appeared on its cute little face. It rubbed its head against Chun Dao's palm, and its long tail kept shaking, showing its happy mood. I'll call you Madoka from now on. Chun Dao looked at the red panda's round face and gave it this name. Then Chun Dao hung Xiao Yuan on his shoulders and went to the kitchen to have dinner with his family. Wow! Chun Fei had sharp eyes and immediately spotted the red panda lying on Chun Dao's shoulder. She trotted over to Chun Dao and stared at the cute little panda without blinking. Brother, what kind of animal is this? It's so beautiful. Chun Taidan also ran over immediately, wanting to reach out and touch the red panda, but was a little scared. This is a red panda. Chun Dao explained to the 2 little guys, I named it Xiao Yuan. Do you want to play with Xiao Yuan? I want to. The 2 children nodded at the same time. Children really have no resistance to cute creatures like red pandas. Chapter 43, Effortless. Here you go. Chun Dao took the red panda off his shoulder and handed it to Chun Fei. The little panda was not afraid of strangers. It followed Chun Fei's outstretched hand and climbed onto Chun Fei's shoulder. It squinted its eyes on Chun Fei's shoulder as if it was sleeping. So cute. Chun Taidan reached out and gently stroked the red panda's fur. Seeing that the red panda didn't react at all, he stroked it even more happily. The 2 children returned to their seats while touching the red panda. At this time, the food was served on the table. The meal tonight was quite rich. In addition to steamed buns, Li Ping and He Civilian also cooked a bowl of egg drop soup. Everyone ate sorghum steamed buns with the egg drop soup, and it was quite delicious. After dinner, Chun Dao took the little panda from the reluctant Chun Fei and returned to his bedroom. Chun Dao, lying on the bed, looked at the little panda sleeping in his arms, with a thoughtful look on his face. Red pandas probably eat bamboo, and they also eat berries and other things. The fruit and old rice are definitely not something that can be eaten by the red pandas for the time being, but there is no shortage of bamboo leaves in Qinjia village, which is close to Kangmang Mountain, so there's no need to worry about not being able to feed the red pandas. Next time you go into town, you can ask about the blood jade bamboo leaves. With this thought in mind, Chun Dao quickly fell asleep. 5 days passed quietly. At Chun Dao's construction site, Chun Chung and his 5 companions, as well as Chun Da, were still busy building the main structure of the house. Chun Dao was standing in the courtyard of the Chun family, with a look of joy in his eyes. At this time, the number of yellow-feathered chickens in the cage has reached 24. This is a number that surprised Chun Dao extremely, because among these 24 yellow-feathered chickens, there are 7 adult yellow-feathered chickens. After Chun Dao sold 2 yellow-feathered chickens, there were only 4 adult yellow-feathered chickens left. The reason why there are 7 now is naturally because the 3 chicks that were hatched at the beginning have grown up. 8 days. Only 8 days to adulthood. Such a growth rate. Chun Dao was shocked. In his past life, the fast-growing white-feathered chickens used by fast food restaurants like KFC took at least 20 days to reach marketability, while the yellow-feathered chickens he raised only needed 8 days. If this happened in China in the past, the people would probably regard the chickens as unhealthy, even poisonous, or injected with growth hormones. But Chun Dao knew very well that he absolutely could not use high-tech things like growth hormones on yellow-feathered chickens, and it was even more impossible for him to feed them chemical feed. Instead, they were raised with pure natural grains. The reason why yellow-feathered chickens can reach adulthood in 8 days is simply because the breed is unique, and it is definitely not because they are fed with growth hormones or feed containing hormones. At this rate of reproduction and growth, I'm afraid this cage won't be enough in less than a month. At this moment, Chun Dao especially hopes that his house can be built as soon as possible, otherwise he will really have no place to raise chickens. In addition, as the number of chickens increased, the food consumption also increased. The sorghum, rice bran, and other foods purchased last time have almost been consumed. We need to start breeding blood-feathered chickens. Chun Dao pondered. He knew very well that although white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens were sold at a higher price, they could only provide enough food for his family. If he wanted to get rich, he had to cultivate the chicken breeds that warriors needed, which was blood-feathered chickens. The warriors in this world have a transcendent status and are one of the wealthiest groups of people. Only things sold to warriors can be sold at high prices and generate sufficient profits. Thinking of this, Chun Dao immediately returned to the house, took out 3 blood-clotting fruits, and gave them to the 3 yellow-feathered chickens that had just reached adulthood to peck at. Chuckle. 3 newly grown yellow-feathered chickens pecked quickly at the blood-clotting fruit that Chun Dao placed on the ground. At the same time, Xiaohei also ran over and begged Chun Dao for food. Xiaoyuan, who had been lying on Chun Dao's shoulder, also made a whimpering sound, obviously because she was hungry. They're all foodies. Chun Dao returned to the house in distress and took out sorghum and rice bran to feed Xiaohei. Then, Chun Dao took the little panda out and came to his own construction site. Uncle Chun. Chun Dao stopped Chun Da, who was carrying wood, and said, "Please take me to find some bamboo." Chun Da glanced at the red panda on Chun Dao's shoulder and nodded knowingly. "Come with me." Soon, Chun Dao and Chun Da arrived at a bamboo forest at the foot of the mountain. Xiaoyuan seemed particularly excited when she came to the bamboo forest. She jumped off Chun Dao's body while chirping and nibbled on the fresh bamboo. "Brother Dao, just stay here and don't go inside." Chun Da pointed in the direction of the mountain in a secretive manner. This bamboo forest was on the edge of Kangmang Mountain, with fewer wild animals, so it was a relatively safe place. If he went deeper, he would reach the area where Chun Da used to hunt. Various wild animals would appear from time to time, which was very dangerous. "I know, Uncle. Then I'll go back to work." After Chun Da left, Chun Dao sat under a bamboo tree, waiting for Xiaoyuan to eat while looking into the depths of the vast mountains. Kangmang Mountain is mysterious and dangerous. Even the villagers of Chunjia village who live at the foot of the mountain know very little about this mountain. Not to mention the villagers of Chunjia village. Even Chun Da, the hunter, has very limited knowledge of Kangmang Mountain. When going to the mountains to hunt, Chun Da only dared to hunt on the outskirts of Kangmang Mountain and never dared to go deep into it. According to Chun Da, He once saw a group of warriors enter the depths of Kangmang Mountain from the direction of Chinjia village, and then never came out again. Even warriors who enter cannot survive, which shows how dangerous it is in the depths of Kangmang Mountain. But at this moment, Xiao Yuan made a happy cry. Chen Dao looked in the direction of the sound and saw Xiao Yuan standing up, with a hint of anxiety on her round little face. In front of Xiao Yuan was a particularly unique bamboo. The leaves on the bamboo were completely different from the ordinary emerald green leaves. Instead, they were blood red in color. Under the sunlight, the leaves sparkled like jade. Oh my! Because the bamboo leaves were too high, Xiao Yuan couldn't reach them. So she quickly ran to Chen Dao and bit the corner of Chen Dao's clothes, as if asking Chen Dao for help. Could this be the blood jade bamboo leaf? Chen Dao walked to the bamboo tree and looked up. The bamboo leaves are red and shimmer with a jade-like luster. They are very likely one of the materials needed for the red panda to advance. Blood jade bamboo leaves. This is really easy to get. Chen Dao stretched out his hand and shook the bamboo pole violently. Soon, pieces of red bamboo leaves fell from the sky. Xiao Yuan happily picked up a bamboo leaf and put it in her mouth to chew. Judging from Xiao Yuan's performance, this thing is most likely a blood jade bamboo leaf. Chen Dao judged that according to past experience, advanced materials are often very attractive to animals that need advancement. When Chen Dao took out the blood-clotting fruit to feed the yellow-feathered chickens, Xiao Yuan seemed particularly restless and seemed to want to eat the blood-clotting fruit very much. The fact that Xiao Yuan likes this red bamboo leaf so much means that it is very likely one of the blood jade bamboo leaves needed for advancement. In this way, Xiao Yuan won't need to go to the county town to find materials for her advancement. Thinking of this, Chen Dao shook the bamboo pole more violently, and pieces of red bamboo leaves fell with the wind. Chen Dao collected all the bamboo leaves with nimble hands and feet, and then quickly took Xiao Yuan back to the Chun family's home, took out a blood-clotting fruit, and handed it to Xiao Yuan. Oh my! Xiao Yuan excitedly picked up a blood-clotting fruit with both hands, nibbled the flesh in small bites, and a human-like look of joy appeared on her face. Chapter 44: Blood Claw Chicken and Red Blood Chicken. Brother, where's Madoka? We want to play with her. Chun Fei and Chun Taidan ran out of the house happily, and the first thing they said was that they wanted to find Xiao Yuan. Chen Dao handed Xiao Yuan, who had finished eating the blood-clotting fruit, to them and said, "You guys can play with Xiao Yuan. Brother is going out." "Okay, brother." After leaving Xiao Yuan to play with the two children, Chen Dao came to the construction site and worked with Chun De and others to do some work within his ability. 3 days passed. That morning, Chun Dao stood in front of the chicken coop with a look of joy in his eyes. At this time, the total number of chickens in the chicken coop has reached 30, including 8 adult yellow-feathered chickens, 19 young yellow-feathered chickens, and the remaining 3 are blood-feathered chickens. Advancement successful. Chen Dao looked at the blood-feathered chicken in the cage, his joy beyond words. At the same time, the blood-feathered chicken's advancement information appeared in Chen Dao's sight. Blood-feathered chicken. Features. Small size, chicken meat, and chicken blood can strengthen qi and blood. Blood-feathered chicken advancement, Route 1. Feed blood Ganoderma lucidum for 5 consecutive days to advance to blood claw chicken. Blood claw chicken characteristics. Large in size, swift in movement, and capable of fighting at the same level as an 8th grade warrior. Blood feather chicken advancement route 2. Mash the heart grass and phoenix tail flower into juice and feed it for 5 consecutive days to advance to red blood chicken. Features of red blood chicken. Chicken blood and chicken meat can nourish qi and blood, and the effect is even greater than that of blood feather chicken. Blood claw chicken and red claw chicken. Chen Dao's face showed a thoughtful expression. This time, there were also 2 advancement routes. One was to advance to a fighting chicken, and the other was to advance to a broiler chicken. The chicken breeds that can be produced by these 2 advanced routes look very good. Among them, the blood claw chicken's combat power is comparable to that of an 8th grade warrior. And although the description of the red blood chicken is a bit vague, Chen Dao can roughly conclude based on his previous experience. The red blood chicken's effect in nourishing qi and blood is definitely better than that of the blood feather chicken. It's a pity that advanced medicinal herbs are becoming increasingly difficult to obtain. Chen Dao sighed. He had never heard of the blood Ganoderma lucidum, which was an advanced form of the blood claw chicken. Moreover, it went without saying that any medicinal herb with the word Ganoderma in its name would not be cheap. As for the advanced materials for the red blood chicken, There is no shortage of chicken heartgrass and old rice, but for phoenix tail flower, I'm afraid I have to go to the county town to inquire. Chun Dao guessed that blood ganoderma and phoenix tail flower were most likely medicinal herbs used by warriors, and the medicinal herbs used by warriors were often extremely expensive. Let's think about advancement later. Chun Dao put the matter of advancement aside for the moment and looked at the 3 blood-feathered chickens in the cage. Now that the blood-feather chicken, a chicken breed that is effective against warriors, has been cultivated, the next step is to consider selling them. But Chun Dao hasn't figured out how to sell this thing. Because the blood-feather chicken, a chicken breed that is useful to warriors, is really too precious. If Chun Dao takes it to the market to sell, it is difficult to guarantee that it will not be targeted by others. The entire Xia kingdom is in turmoil now. The court and the government have no control over the people below, and the majesty of the law has disappeared. Things like murder and robbery are not impossible to happen. The last time he was on his way to the county town, Chun Dao saw with his own eyes several bandits rushing out of the woods beside the official road, forcibly abducting 2 women from a family of 3 and all their money and food. In other words, Chun Dao and his gang seemed difficult to deal with. Otherwise, they would probably become one of the prey of those bandits. Of course, what Chun Dao was worried about was not the bandits, but the powerful forces in the county. Once those powerful forces learn that I possess something like the blood feather chicken, which is as powerful as a demon beast, I'm afraid there will only be 2 possible outcomes for me. One is that it died suddenly and inexplicably, and then the blood feather chicken fell into the hands of those powerful forces for their research. Second, he was imprisoned and tortured by those powerful forces, asking about the origin of the blood feather chicken. Either of these 2 consequences is unacceptable to Chun Dao, so Chun Dao plans to wait until Xiao Yuan successfully advances before considering going to the county town to sell blood feather chickens. As for the destination for selling the blood feather chicken, Chun Dao had no choice but to sell it to Li Ying. Chun Dao, who had dealt with Li Ying several times, still had a good impression of Li Ying. Li Ying did not have that kind of condescending air at all, and his heart was kind. He should not do anything to take advantage of others. But even so, Chun Dao still planned to wait for Xiao Yuan to advance successfully before going to the county town. After all, one can't judge a person by his appearance, and Chun Dao couldn't guarantee whether Li Ying would be tempted by the huge benefits of the blood feather chicken. Only with the protection of the iron claw red panda, which is equivalent to an 8th grade warrior, can Chun Dao feel at ease. Hurry up and succeed in your advancement, Madoka. Chun Dao gently stroked Xiao Yuan's chubby head, and Xiao Yuan immediately made a comfortable ing sound, as if she was enjoying Chun Dao's touch very much. After taking out food from the house to feed Xiao Hei and a group of yellow-feathered chickens and blood-feathered chickens, Chun Dao walked out of the house and came to his own construction site. At this time, Chun Cheng and the other 4 were having breakfast, still eating the fragrant sorghum flour buns. When they saw Chun Dao coming, they all greeted him. Brother Dao is here. Brother Dao has some steam buns here. Would you like to share some? Facing the enthusiastic crowd, Chun Dao nodded in response, walked straight to Chun Cheng and sat down, then asked with a smile, Brother Cheng, aren't you a little tired of eating steamed buns every day? Tired? How can I be tired? Chun Cheng replied without hesitation. This steamed bun is even better than white rice. How can I get tired of it? Chun Dao was speechless, and then he realized that he had been thinking in the wrong direction. For him, eating steamed buns for every meal was naturally unacceptable. He had to eat some white rice occasionally to change the taste. But for people like Chun Cheng, their family usually eats bran flour, and steamed buns are many times more delicious to them than bran flour, so there's no possibility of getting tired of them. Brother Dao, Chun came over and said, the house is already half built. I estimate that it will be completed in about half a month. Hearing this, Chun Dao looked towards the construction site and saw that the outline of the house had already appeared. Just as Chun said, the main body of the house should be completed in about half a month. Thank you for your hard work, Uncle and Brother Cheng, said Chun Dao. It's hard all. Chun waved his hand and said, we eat steamed buns every day. We wish we could work in your house every day. Yes, yes. The others nodded in agreement like chicks pecking at rice. The time they spent working at Chun Dao's house was probably the happiest time they had ever had. They had steamed buns every day. They had never had such a good life in the peaceful years before, let alone in the disaster years now. Chapter 45, Iron Claw Red Panda. After breakfast, Chun Chung and others started to get busy, some cutting trees and some cutting wood. Chun Dao also participated and did some work within his ability, such as passing wood to Chun Jiang and others who were building the house. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. The first thing Chun Dao did when he opened his eyes that day was to lift the quilt and look at Xiao Yuan, who was curled up in his quilt. Iron Claw Red Panda. Features: swift movements, sharp claws, combat power comparable to an 8th grade warrior. Iron Claw Panda Advancement, Route 1. Feed it with blood coagulating fruit and blood Ganoderma for 5 days to advance to Blade Panda. Blade Panda features: long and sharp claws capable of breaking through the defenses of a 7th grade warrior. Its combat power rivals that of a peak 8th grade warrior. Iron Claw Red Panda Advancement Route 2. Feed Iron Heart Bamboo and Bear Blood Flower for 5 days to advance to Gold Claw Red Panda. Golden Claw Red Panda features: extremely fast, combat power comparable to a 7th grade warrior. Advancement successful. Chun Dao was instantly overwhelmed by ecstasy. He took Xiao Yuan out of the bed and carefully examined her changes. It seems like nothing has changed? After a careful inspection, Chun Dao couldn't help but frown. The information that emerged in his sight let him know that Xiao Yuan had successfully advanced to become an iron-clawed red panda, but Xiao Yuan's appearance had not changed much. She was still so cute and harmless. Wrong. Chun Dao's sight quickly fell on Xiao Yuan's claws, only to find that Xiao Yuan's claws had become much longer and looked sharper. Before, the red panda's claws felt more like plastic, but this time when Chun Dao touched them, he felt a cold, sharp, and solid touch. The claws also shone with a metallic luster, almost the same as iron. I wonder how powerful this claw is. Chun Dao carried Xiao Yuan to the front yard and pointed at a stone the size of a human head in the yard and said to Xiao Yuan, attack this stone. Oh my! Xiao Yuan responded immediately, jumped off Chun Dao's body, and swung her claws at the stone. Laugh! A sharp and piercing sound was heard, and the next moment, in Chun Dao's sight, several dents made by Xiao Yuan appeared on the stone the size of a human head. Fuck! Chun Dao stared at the dents on the stone with wide eyes, and had a deep understanding of Xiao Yuan's attack power. Even such a hard stone could be scratched with dents. If Xiao Yuan's claws grabbed a person, the skin would probably be torn apart in minutes, right? You're awesome, Madoka. Chun Dao excitedly picked up Xiao Yuan and kissed her furry face madly. Oh my! Xiao Yuan seemed to enjoy her master's kiss very much, making whimpering sounds of pleasure. She seemed to be a completely different species from the red panda that had just scratched the stone with its claws. Looking at the cute Xiao Yuan, Chun Dao liked her even more. He rubbed Xiao Yuan's head and became happier and happier. Dower, what are you doing here? But at this moment, Li Ping and Itzuilian came out of the house carrying lunch buckets. Seeing Chun Dao rubbing his little round head frantically, they asked with a smile. Fine. Chun Dao waved his hand and said, Mom, I'll go out with you. So the three of them left Chin's house and headed towards the construction site. At this time, Chun Sheng and others were sitting under a big tree next to the construction site to avoid the wind. Although they felt a little cold, their hearts were very warm. They were looking forward to the steamed bun dinner later. Brother Dao is here? Chun Shi immediately noticed Chun Dao's arrival and went forward to ask, Brother Dao, are we still eating steamed buns today? Certainly. Chun Dao smiled and nodded, but you don't have to work after breakfast today. No need to work? When Chun Sheng and others heard that they didn't have to work, they looked uneasy, which was unusual for them. Brother Dao, Chun Sheng asked anxiously, aren't you going to repair your house? During this period of time, Chun Sheng has completely fallen in love with working at Chun Dao. Although the daily physical labor is quite intense, he can eat his fill, and there are delicious foods such as steamed buns, which he has never experienced before. Yes, Brother Dao, the house is only half built. We can't stop, right? Chun Jiang said cautiously, fearing that Chun Dao would say that the house would not be built anymore. Brother Dao, did we eat too much? Can we eat less next time? Chun Shi asked with a worried look on his face. He had finally found a place to eat. If Chun Dao's house was not built, the three brothers would have to go back to their previous life of hunger. Don't worry, the house will definitely be finished. Chun Dao smiled and said, the reason I'm not working today is because I need you to come with me to the city. Going into the city? Hearing that the house was not to be built, the three Chun Sheng brothers breathed a sigh of relief, while Chun Jiang and Chun Si's eyes lit up. They were the ones who longed for the county town the most and liked to go there the most. As for Chunda, he seemed to be thinking about something, guessing that Chundao was going to the county town to sell chickens. In fact, not only Chundao, but Chunda himself also planned to go to the city. The 13 gray-feathered chickens he bought last time had all been upgraded to white-feathered chickens. In addition, the few white-feathered chickens that were originally left at home also successfully hatched 3 new white-feathered chicks. Chun Cheng's house is now overcrowded with chickens. It's time to sell some of them. Otherwise, keeping them at home will be a waste of food. Uncle, please go to the village chief's house and borrow the donkey cart. Chun Dao signaled Chunda to borrow a donkey cart, while he accompanied Chun Cheng and the other 4 to have breakfast. This steamed bun is really good. Taking a steamed bun from He Tzuoyan, Chun Shi took a big bite and praised it highly, saying, "I never get tired of it. It's not like bran flour. If I wasn't extremely hungry, I wouldn't be able to eat it at all." Everyone nodded when they heard this. How could the taste of steamed buns be compared to that of bran flour? If Daojir's family stops working from now on, I don't know what I'm going to do. Chun Jiang half-jokingly said, "My appetite has been spoiled by the steamed bun from Brother Dao's house. I don't know if I can eat the food at home anymore." Yeah, compared to steamed buns, the food at home is almost like pig food. Chun Sisin nodded in agreement. Although he and Chun Jiang's family were not as poor as Chun Cheng's family, they did not have much to eat. Most of the time they ate bran flour, and only occasionally they could eat sorghum flour. The taste was far from comparable to the fragrant and sweet steamed buns. Chun Dao listened quietly to everyone's speeches and felt that the people in this world were too easily satisfied. In his previous life, due to the developed productivity, people had already gotten rid of hunger and had extremely high demands on food. Not only did they want to have meat for every meal, but the meat also had to be delicious enough. They were not as easily satisfied as the people in this world. They would praise the steamed buns after eating a few meals, and they would never get tired of it. Chapter 46. Master of Fuhu Pavilion. Not long after, Chunda drove the donkey cart back. Many villagers watching nearby looked at Chunda on the donkey cart and looked at each other in confusion. Did Chunda go to the village chief's house to borrow a donkey cart again? Are we going into the city? I must be going to buy food. Chunde and Dao Gooder's families are truly wealthy. Even these days, they can still go to the city every few days to buy food. Facing the envious gazes of the nearby villagers, Chunda and Chun Dao returned home together, tied up all the chickens that needed to be sold, put them in cages, and then got on the donkey cart with Chun Sheng and the other 4, left Chinjia village, and walked onto the official road. On the long official road, you can still see refugees, some alone, some with their families. All of them are skinny and ragged. There were even many refugees stopping outside Chinjia village, as if they wanted to enter Chinjia village to beg for food, but they were destined to be unable to enter because the village chief Chun, he organized the young and strong men in the village to guard the village every day to strictly prevent these refugees who wanted to break into the village. As the donkey cart approached the county town, a foul odor hit us in the face. The huts built by refugees were scattered outside the city in a disorderly manner, with feces and urine everywhere. The entire outside of the city seemed like a filthy world. In addition, Chun Dao also saw many refugees lying on the ground with lifeless eyes. These refugees probably could not find food and did not have the strength to build huts, so they could only lie on the ground and wait to die. Well, Chun Dao sighed lightly, forcibly suppressing the compassion in his heart. After paying 10 cents, he entered the city with Chunda and others and went straight to the gate of Fuhu Martial Arts School. "Brother Wei, please help me call Miss Li." As per convention, after putting 10 copper coins into Wei Ji's hand, Wei Go entered the hall and called Li Ying out. "Brother Chun is here." Li Ying's smile was still so friendly when she saw Chun Dao. For her, who is a foodie, everyone who sells her high-end ingredients can win her favor. "Miss Li, can you please spare me a moment to talk?" Chun Dao pulled Li Ying to the side mysteriously, but Li Ying didn't take it seriously and followed Chun Dao to a slightly farther place. After making sure they were far enough away so Wei Gu, Chunda, and the others couldn't hear him, Chun Dao lowered his voice and said, "Miss Li, I brought some special chickens this time. Are you interested?" "Special chicken?" Li Ying's eyes lit up, and she couldn't wait to ask, "How is it special?" Chun Dao thought for a moment, then organized his words. 2 days ago, when we went in the mountains, we caught a kind of chicken we'd never seen before. It was very small, but its feathers were bright red like blood. According to the old hunters in the village, this chicken could be very beneficial to warriors. It will be of great benefit to warriors? Li Ying's pupils shrank, and she asked in surprise, "Are you telling the truth?" It's no wonder Li Ying was so shocked. Prey that was useful to warriors was too rare. As far as Li Ying knew, the only prey in the world that was effective against warriors was demonic beasts. If what Chen Dao said was true, then that meant, did Chen Dao and his team capture the monster? That's just our guess. Of course, Chen Dao didn't dare to make any guarantees, so he could only say vaguely, "This is the judgment of the old hunters in the village. They suspect that this kind of chicken may have the blood of a demon beast and can help warriors strengthen their chi and blood." Monster bloodline. Li Ying frowned and thought for a moment, then said to Chen Dao, "Brother Chen, please wait for me for a moment." After saying that, Li Ying turned around and ran into the martial arts hall. Not long after, Li Ying returned and said to Chen Dao, "Brother Chen, my father wants to see you." Li Ying's father. Isn't that Li Hu, the owner of Fuhu Boxing Gym? According to information Chen Dao had gathered, Li Hu, the owner of the Fuhu Boxing Gym, was an 8th-rank martial artist and considered one of the strongest men in the entire county. Such a figure wanted to meet him. Chen Dao gently stroked Xia Yuan, who was lying on his shoulder, and nodded. "Okay. Bring your chicken with you. My dad wants to see it." "Ugh." Chen Dao gestured to Chunda and others to wait for him outside, and then he carried the chicken cage and walked into the Fuhu Boxing Gym with Li Ying. After passing through the door of the boxing gym, you will see an empty lobby where tall and straight young men are practicing boxing in a methodical manner. Next to these young men, there was an extremely tall man who was correcting their posture. "That's my second junior apprentice brother Han Meng." Li Ying noticed Chen Dao's gaze and introduced him. "My father rarely teaches the apprentices in the martial arts school himself these days. It's usually done by my second junior brother. He's incredibly talented and is already a peak 9th grade warrior. He'll soon catch up with my father." Chen Dao nodded and said, "Then Miss Li, are you the senior sister?" "Certainly." Li Ying puffed out her chest and said proudly, "Don't underestimate second junior brother because he's so powerful. Even when he sees me, he has to call me senior sister." "Awesome, awesome." Chen Dao smiled and complimented Li Ying. At the same time, many apprentices practicing martial arts in the martial arts hall also noticed Chen Dao, but they lost interest after just a glance. From the way Chen Dao was dressed, it was clear at a glance that he was not the same kind of person as them and was not worthy of their attention at all. Only Han Meng, who was as tall as Chun Chung, trotted over and greeted Li Ying innocently. "Big sister." Li Ying nodded. Han Meng then looked at Chen Dao and asked, "Who is this little brother?" "My name is Chun Dao." "Hello, Brother Chun." Han Meng scratched his head and said, "Brother Chun, are you here to learn martial arts too?" "No." Chen Dao had no intention of explaining. Li Ying said, "My father wants to see him. Junior brother Han. We'll talk in detail later." Ugh. After passing through the lobby of the martial arts hall, we arrived at the backyard of the hall. There was only one figure sitting on a stone bench in the empty backyard. Chen Dao recognized the man's identity at a glance. It was the owner of the Fuhu Boxing Gym, Li Hu. "Father." As expected, Li Ying came to the backyard and called out Li Hu's identity. "I brought Brother Chen here." Li Hu nodded at Li Ying, then pointed to the stone chair opposite him and said to Chen Dao, "Little brother, please sit down." "Thank you, Master Li." Chen Dao thanked him, walked straight to sit opposite Li Hu, and looked at Li Hu opposite him quietly. The warriors that Li Hu and Chen Dao imagined were very different. In Chen Dao's opinion, a strong warrior should be as tall as Han Meng and Chun Chung, but Li Hu's stature was not particularly tall. He was estimated to be only 1.7 meters tall. In the cold weather, Li Hu was only wearing a short-sleeved shirt, and his exposed arms were bulging with muscles, like sculptures, giving people a feeling of great power. Li Hu casually glanced at Xia Yuan on Chen Dao's shoulder, sizing him up and saying, "Little brother, you said you caught a chicken with the blood of a demon beast?" Chapter 47. The Effective Chicken Blood. "Master Li, please take a look." Chen Dao picked up the chicken cage at his feet and placed it on the stone table in front of him. "This is the chicken we caught from the Kangmang Mountains. Its feathers are bright red like blood. It's a breed we've never seen before. According to the old hunter in our village, this is very likely a chicken with the blood of a demon beast." The old hunter's speculation was naturally Chen Dao's nonsense excuse. He said that just to increase the credibility of the blood-feathered chicken having the blood of a demon beast. However, Chen Dao's words did arouse Li Hu's interest. Li Hu moved closer and looked at the blood-feathered chicken in the cage. He saw that the chicken in the cage was extremely small, even smaller than the common domestic gray-feathered chicken. It was indeed as Chen Dao said, with bright red feathers all over its body, which made it extraordinary at first glance. This chicken is definitely different. Li Hu stood up and looked down at the chicken in the cage. He said thoughtfully, "Are you sure that this chicken, like a beast with demonic blood, has the effect of strengthening its qi and blood?" "I can't be sure." Chen Dao spoke frankly, "So I brought this chicken to Miss Li to have a look. If this chicken really has the effect of strengthening qi and blood, as the hunters in our village said, then we could discuss the price. If not, then this deal is off." "Oh." Li Hu turned his gaze towards Chen Dao, sizing up the young man and secretly admiring him. As one of the top 10 most influential people in Taiping County, Li Hu has seen too many young people who are timid in front of him. Not to mention anything else, just look at the apprentices in the martial arts school, who isn't timid when seeing Li Hu. However, Chen Dao, the farmer boy as described by his daughter, was neither humble nor arrogant when facing him. He spoke clearly, and there was no fear in his eyes. This courage alone was enough to make Li Hu look at him with admiration. "You mean, you're willing to give us a chicken for the experiment?" Li Hu said with an admiring look in his eyes. "Certainly." Chen Dao took a blood-feathered chicken out of the cage and said, "Master, please take one of these chickens for a taste test. If this chicken really does strengthen your qi and blood, we could discuss the price. If not, I'll take all of these chickens back." Chen Dao naturally knew that this batch of blood-feathered chickens really had the effect of strengthening qi and blood, so he was not worried about the results of the experiment, but was only worried that Li Hu would seize them by trickery. Fortunately, Xiao Yuan lying on his shoulder can give Chen Dao some sense of security. "Good." Li Hu took the blood-feathered chicken and handed it to Li Ying, saying, "Yingzi, kill this chicken and give me some blood to taste." "No problem." Li Ying was quite skilled in killing chickens. He quickly carried the chicken into the nearby kitchen. Within a short while, the screams of the blood-feathered chicken were heard from the kitchen. Then, Li Ying came out of the kitchen with a bowl of chicken blood that had not yet solidified and said to Li Hu, "Dad, try it." Li Hu took the bowl of chicken blood and explained to Chen Dao, "The blood of any beast with the blood of a demon beast will strengthen a warrior's qi and blood. If this bowl of chicken blood works, it means your chickens really do have the blood of a demon beast." After saying that, Li Hu picked up the bowl and drank all the chicken blood in the bowl without any dislike for the fishy smell. "It tastes pretty good." Li Hu, who had drunk all the chicken blood, wiped the remaining chicken blood from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. Then his face froze, and he stood there in a daze. This chicken blood. Li Hu only felt a warm current rising from his stomach, and then this warm current spread from his abdomen to his whole body, making the blood in Li Hu's body seem to boil. His exposed skin and face were all red, which was a manifestation of the surging blood and qi in his body. "It really works." Li Ying's eyes lit up. As a 9th-rank warrior, she was very familiar with Li Hu's performance at this moment. It was a manifestation of the boiling of qi and blood in her body and the increase of qi and blood power. "Wait a moment." Unable to suppress the boiling blood in his body, Li Hu walked directly to the open space in the backyard, waved his fists, and performed the family martial arts, the tiger subduing fist, to calm the surging blood and energy in his body. "Call." After a long while, Li Hu exhaled a breath of hot air. The redness on his skin and face gradually faded away, and he returned to the stone table and sat down. "Dad, how's the effect?" Li Ying asked impatiently. "Effect?" Li Hu felt the condition in his body and gave it a high evaluation. "The effect is very good, several times better than ordinary medicinal herbs." This bowl of chicken blood increased the qi and blood in Li Hu's body a little bit. Although it was not much, it was a very surprising thing for Li Hu. You know, Li Hu, who has reached the peak of the 8th grade warrior, usually needs to practice boxing diligently for at least a month to increase his blood and energy. As for using medicinal herbs to aid cultivation, for Li Hu at this level, the medicinal herbs that can be bought in the county town are no longer effective for him. However, a bowl of blood-feather chicken's blood saved Li Hu a month's work, which shows how extraordinary the effect of blood-feather chicken is. Chen Dao breathed a sigh of relief after hearing Li Hu's evaluation. It was good that the blood-feather chicken could get Li Hu's approval. In this way, his blood-feather chicken would not have to worry about sales. That means the chicken Brother Chan brought really has the blood of a monster? Li Ying asked. I'm not sure if there's demon beast bloodline or not, but the effect of strengthening qi and blood is real. Li Hu turned to look at Chun Dao and said, Little brother, let's talk about the price. Price? Chun Dao naturally didn't know the price of this thing, so he said, Why don't you tell me what price you are willing to pay first, Master Li? Li Hu glanced at Chun Dao and said, How about 10 taels of silver each? That's too cheap. Is Master Li taking advantage of my youth and ignorance? Chun Dao shook his head and said, As far as I know, a common herb that can help a 9th-grade warrior strengthen his qi and blood would sell for at least 20 taels of silver. Blood-feathered chickens are more effective than herbs, so they shouldn't be worth 10 taels of silver each. This was the reason why Chun Dao gave up on becoming a warrior, and also the reason why Li Ying persuaded Chun Dao to give up practicing martial arts. In this world, medicinal herbs suitable for warriors were too expensive and were simply not something a farmer like Chun Dao could afford. Of course, what we are talking about here are the medicinal herbs used by warriors. If they are the medicinal herbs used by apprentices in martial arts schools, the price will probably be cheaper. However, no matter how cheap it is not something that a farmer like Chun Dao, who comes from a rural family, can afford. Well, Li Hu, feeling somewhat guilty after his thoughts were exposed, scratched his head awkwardly and said with an awkward smile, You can't say that. Little brother, although your chicken is more effective than herbs. Before Li Hu could finish, Chun Dao held up 2 fingers and said, 20 taels of silver each. What do you think, Master Li? Chapter 48, Fuhu Fist. 20 taels? Li Hu's eyes lit up, and without thinking, he said, Deal. Chun Dao was speechless, feeling that the price he mentioned was still a little low, but since he had already said it, it was difficult to refute it. So he said, Then let's start the transaction. Become. Li Hu said to Li Ying, Yingzi, go get 100 taels of silver. Chun Dao brought 5 blood-feather chickens, each costing 20 taels, and 100 taels of silver was just enough to buy them all. Li Ying ran into the house and returned to short while later with a purse. He handed it to Chun Dao and said, Brother Chun, this is 100 taels of silver. Count it. Chun Dao took the purse, opened it in front of Li Ying, and counted the money. Confirming that the 100 taels of silver were exactly the same, Chun Dao smiled and said, Thank you, Master Li, for your generosity. To be honest, Chun Dao was quite satisfied with the price of 20 taels for each blood-feather chicken. The most important thing was that Li Hu and his daughter did not choose to rob his blood-feather chicken out of greed, but chose a normal transaction. In this way, he can sell more blood-feather chickens to Li Hu with confidence in the future. Li Hu, who had bought 5 blood-feather chickens at such a low price of 100 taels of silver, was also very happy. He said with a smile, You're welcome, little brother. After saying that, Li Hu looked at Chun Dao and asked, Little brother, do you have any plans to learn martial arts? Chun Dao was startled when he heard this, and looked at Li Ying and said, Can I learn martial arts too? Of course I can. Li Hu smiled and said, Anyone in this world can learn martial arts. The only difference is talent. Of course, talent isn't the key to success. The real key to success lies in resources. Resource. Good. Li Hu nodded and said, Anyone can learn martial arts, but even those with extraordinary talent still face the biggest hurdle of becoming a martial artist. Resources. Just 1 serving of medicinal herbs for an apprentice-level martial artist costs 5 taels of silver. The herbs needed by a 9th-grade martial artist are even more expensive, costing at least 20 taels of silver. Little brother, how many people can afford the cost of learning martial arts? Well, Chun Dao was speechless. No one, at least among the people he knew, could afford this price. Then why does the owner think I can learn martial arts? Because you have money. Li Hu narrowed his eyes and smiled. 100 taels of silver, while a drop in the bucket compared to the cost of martial arts training. If you're lucky enough, it's enough to make you a 9th-rank martial artist. So, are you interested in coming to my Fuhu boxing gym to learn martial arts? I feel like you were waiting for me here. Chun Dao rolled his eyes. The tuition for Fuhu boxing school was not cheap. The registration fee for entering the school to learn martial arts was 10 taels of silver. This did not include the subsequent expenses, such as the medicine and soup in the martial arts school. It was no exaggeration to say that the cost of learning martial arts in Fuhu boxing school for a month was at least 30 taels of silver. Thank you for the kind invitation, Master. Chun Dao politely declined, but I live outside the city, so it's not convenient for me to come to the academy to practice martial arts. Let's just forget about it. Whatever. Li Hu was just trying to make a play, so when he saw Chun Dao refuse, he didn't force it. Instead, he took out a book from his arms and placed it on the stone table, pushing it in Chun Dao's direction. Since little brother doesn't want to join the academy to learn martial arts, then I'll give you this book of Fu Hu Quan. Chun Dao stared at the book that Li Hu pushed to him and saw 4 big characters written on the cover of the book, Subduing Tiger Fist Manual, which made Chun Dao stunned. According to the information he had heard, the Fu Hu Fist was the signature skill of the Fu Hu Fist Gym. He never thought Li Hu would be so generous as to give away the boxing manual. Suddenly, Chun Dao had a deeper understanding of Li Hu's generosity, but he still declined, saying, "This is too valuable. I dare not accept it. Precious." Li Hu and Li Ying both laughed. Little brother may have believed the rumors outside. Li Hu smiled and said, "I think the boxing skills of Fu Hu Martial Arts School are a family secret, priceless. But in fact, it is not the case. Isn't it?" Chun Dao said with a puzzled look on his face. This was what he heard outside. The 3 major martial arts schools, including the 3 major families in the county, all had top secret skills and would never be passed on to outsiders. Of course not. Li Ying said, "Brother Chun, think about this. If the Subduing Tiger Fist is truly so precious, why would we so easily teach it to those apprentices in the hall outside?" Well, Chun Dao opened his mouth and found that he could not refute. Just as Li Ying said, the apprentices who practiced martial arts in the lobby outside only needed to pay 10 taels of silver, and they could learn the Subduing Tiger Fist in the martial arts hall. There were even people teaching them personally. If the Subduing Tiger Fist was like this, how could Li Hu teach it to those apprentices so easily? In fact, martial arts techniques are not that precious. At least the lower 3-grade techniques are not that precious. Li Hu explained, those apprentices outside, if they don't need anyone to teach them and just want to buy a boxing manual, they could buy one for 2 taels of silver. As for why there are rumors that boxing techniques are precious, it's probably because of the cost of practicing martial arts. Compared to the techniques, the medicinal herbs needed to nourish and strengthen the qi and blood are the biggest problem, and a mountain that prevents thousands of ordinary people from becoming martial artists. I see. Chun Dao suddenly realized. No wonder Li Hu was so generous in giving him the boxing manual. It turned out that the boxing skills were not as precious as he had imagined. It was only because the cost of practicing martial arts was too high that outsiders had the impression that the boxing skills were extremely precious and could not be obtained without billions of wealth. Little brother, please accept this boxing manual with peace of mind. After explaining everything clearly, Li Hu pushed the boxing manual in front of Chun Dao and said, "Young friend, you can practice the moves according to the manual. It would be great if you can master it, but if not, at least you can learn some basic self-defense moves." Chun Dao cupped his fists and said, "Then I'd be disrespectful to refuse. Practicing martial arts is extremely taxing on the body." Li Hu warned, given your physical condition, practicing the Subduing Tiger Fist once a day is already the limit. Don't be greedy. If you feel any discomfort during practice, you must stop immediately. Otherwise, you will inevitably overexert yourself and suffer hidden injuries. Thank you for the reminder, Master. Chun Dao thanked him sincerely and felt more favorable towards Li Hu. As the owner of the Fu Hu Fist Gym, one of the most powerful forces in the county, not only did he not snatch his blood-feathered chicken, he also gave him a precious boxing manual and even reminded him of some details when practicing martial arts. Li Hu is indeed a person worth making close friends with. Then let's stop here. After giving Chun Dao some instructions, Li Hu stood up and said, "Brother, if you still have blood-feathered chickens in the future, you can continue to sell them to me. No matter how many there are, I will buy them at 20 taels each." No problem. Chun Dao readily agreed. Before leaving, he said to Li Ying, "Miss Li, I also brought some white-feathered chickens this time. Are you interested?" White-feathered chicken? Li Ying's eyes lit up and she said quickly, "Yes, I want as many as I want." Although blood-feathered chicken is delicious for Li Ying, a foodie, the meat is still too little. Her favorite are the plump and meaty white-feathered chicken and yellow-feathered chicken. "It's outside. Miss Li, follow me." The two of them walked out of the martial arts hall. Chun Dao nodded to Chunda and the others who had been waiting by the donkey cart. He then pointed to the chicken coop on the cart and said to Li Ying, "Miss Li, we brought 15 white-feathered chickens this time." Okay. heard the number of 15. He took out some silver and handed it to Chun Dao. 500 coins each. 15 is 7.5 taels of silver. I don't have any copper coins, so I'll just give you 8 taels of silver. Thank you, Miss Li. Chun Dazue, who heard the sound, almost laughed out loud. How could he not be happy just to get 500 more coins for no reason? Wei Gu, come and help me move these chickens in. Li Ying called the security guard Wei Gu to carry the chicken cage into the hall. Chun Dao also took the opportunity to say goodbye. Miss Li, we're leaving first. Brother Chun, take care. After Chun Dao and his group left in their donkey cart, Li Ying returned to the backyard, only to see Li Hu staring intently at the chicken coop on the table. Dad, what are you looking at? Of course, it's to look at this blood-feathered chicken. Li Hu came back to his senses and said subconsciously, with this blood-feathered chicken, I'm afraid that within 2 months, I could become a 7th grade warrior. Real. Li Ying was surprised and said that if his father could become a 7th rank warrior, the survival of his martial arts school in Taiping County would be more secure. Of course it's true. Li Hu smiled and nodded. He was also looking forward to the day when he would be promoted to a 7th rank warrior. Currently, the strongest warrior in Taiping County was of the 7th rank. Once he became a 7th rank warrior, he would no longer need to act according to the wishes of the 3 major families. Brother Chun is really capable. Li Ying couldn't help but sigh. They can even catch a chicken with the blood of a demon beast. I don't know how a group of ordinary villagers can catch so many prey. That young friend, Chun, is not a simple person. Li Hu's eyes were deep as he recalled the seemingly harmless, cat-like animal on Chun Dao's shoulder. Yingzi, didn't you notice? That little friend Chun can read. Li Ying obviously didn't notice so many details. She asked with a puzzled look on her face. Isn't Brother Chun a villager from outside the city? How come he can read? These days, literacy is not an easy thing, especially for people in villages outside the city. There may not be a single literate person in the entire village, and there is no way to learn writing at all. That's why I said Chun Xiaoyu is not simple. Li Hu carefully recalled every moment he had spent with Chun Dao. It's not just because he can read and speak well, but also because of the cat on his shoulder. God! Li Ying tilted her head and thought about it. There was indeed a cat lying on Chun Dao's shoulder, but Li Ying was obviously not the kind of girl with a girlish heart who loved small animals, so she didn't pay too much attention to it. That cat gives me a very dangerous feeling. Li Hu said meaningfully. I even suspect that cat is as powerful as me. Li Ying was stunned. His father, Li Hu, was a peak-level 8th rank warrior. What kind of cat could possibly possess the same strength as his father? Could it be a demonic beast? Anyway, just try your best to be friends with Chun Xiaoyu in the future. Liungria Barnat Sulamli. While Li Hu and his daughter were talking, Chun Dao's donkey cart had already arrived at the East Market and saw Wu Han, who was setting up a stall to sell goods. Brother Wu, Brother Chun is here. After greeting each other, Chun Dao smiled and asked, Brother Wu, how's business going lately? Still the same old thing. Wu Han said with a gloomy face, with the government's order to increase taxes, we can't sell live chickens and ducks anymore. Brother Chun, look at this street. Apart from us vendors, there are no other customers. Chun Dao looked around and found that it was just as Wu Han said. There were many peddlers selling goods on the whole street, but there were very few customers. It seems like Brother Wu is having a hard time too. Chun Dao sighed and then said to Wu Han, Brother Wu, I have a business deal. Are you interested? Wu Han is indeed a businessman. When he heard the word business, his eyes immediately lit up. What business? Brother Wu, do you remember the white-feathered chickens I sold here before? White-feathered chicken, of course, I remember. Wu Han nodded repeatedly. He had a very deep memory of Chun Dao's white-feathered chicken. The reason was simply that the white-feathered chicken looked very good and was successfully sold at a high price of 500 coins. I plan to give the white-feathered chicken to you, Brother Wu, to sell. What do you think? Chun Dao lowered his voice and said that with the successful breeding of blood-feather chickens and their successful sale at high prices, Chun Dao has become somewhat disdainful of the business of white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens. After all, the profit from selling white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens is much lower than that from selling blood-feathered chickens. To put it in the words of my previous life, the added value of the 2 chicken breeds, white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens, is relatively low. In addition, every time Chun Dao sells white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens, he needs to go to the city in person, which is really too troublesome. So Chun Dao thought that instead of selling white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens himself, it would be better to hand over this business to others, and he only needed to control the high-value chicken breeds such as blood-feathered chickens. The person who did this was the familiar Wu Han. As a peddler in the city, Wu Han must have some connections in the county. If this matter is handed over to him, there will definitely be no problems. Really, Wu Han's eyes lit up even more. He had been coveting Chun Dao's white-feathered chicken for a long time. Those were white-feathered chickens that looked great and cost 500 won each. If he could control the supply, wouldn't that mean a very considerable profit? Real. Chun Dao nodded seriously. Recently, hunters in our village have found a large number of white-feathered chickens in the vast mountains. We don't plan to sell these chickens ourselves, so we're looking for a merchant familiar with the county to cooperate with. If Brother Wu is interested, we can discuss the specific details of the cooperation. I'm interested. Wu Han eagerly grabbed Chun Dao's hand and said, Brother Chun, please leave this business to me. Don't worry, Brother Wu. We're so familiar with each other. Who else can I give his business to if not you? Brother Chun is so generous. I, old Wu, have made friends with you for nothing. Chapter 50 Calculation. After some pleasantries, Chun Dao talked about the price of white-feathered chickens. Brother Wu, I can hand over the white-feathered chicken business to you, but the price. Chun Dao dragged out his words and finally said, How about 400 coins each? 400 coins each. Wu Han's eyes rolled around as he wondered if he could make money selling a white-feathered chicken for 400 won. Based on the price of 500 won for a white-feathered chicken that Chun Dao sold before, I would definitely make money if I bought them at 400 won each. But nowadays, there are fewer and fewer customers buying chickens in the city. Wu Han is not sure whether he can sell the white-feathered chicken he bought for 400 won for 500 won. After hesitating for a moment, Wu Han said, Brother Chun, isn't 400 won a bit too high? There are only a few people in the city who buy chicken these days. Your white-feathered chicken is good, but it may not fetch the high price of 500 when it once did. Please rest assured, Brother Wu. Chun Dao smiled and said, I've already found a buyer for you. All you need to do is buy the white-feathered chickens from our village and sell them directly to Miss Li Ying from the Fuhu boxing gym. The reason why Chun Dao approached Wu Han was to save himself the trouble of going into the city. As for the problem of not being able to sell the goods, that didn't exist. Li Ying, a foodie, can buy all the white-feathered and yellow-feathered chickens in Xinjiao village for the time being. As for what to do if there are more white-feathered and yellow-feathered chickens in the future and Li Ying can't buy them, it's not too late to lower the price then. Meat is indispensable to human beings. As long as you are willing to lower the price, there is no possibility that it will not be sold. Have you even found a buyer for me? Wu Han was delighted. He had already found the buyer, Chun Dao, for him. He only needed to purchase white-feathered chickens from Xinjiao village and ship them over. Such a simple and profitable business. Even a fool would know how to do it. That's fine with me. Brother Chun, I'll take over your business. Become. Chun Dao nodded and said, Then from now on, Brother Wu, you can come to our village every 3 days and transport the white-feathered chickens we catch to the city to sell. 3 days is exactly the cycle for raising white-feathered chickens and yellow-feathered chickens. Wu Han comes once every 3 days, which corresponds exactly to this cycle. Is it settled then? It's a deal. After finishing his discussion of the white-feathered chickens, Chun Dao looked towards Wu Han's stall and asked, Brother Wu, we're planning to purchase some gray, feathered chickens today. How many do you have? 5 in total. Wu Han knew the number of his gray feathered chickens like the back of his hand and immediately told the total number. 5 is too few. Chun Dao shook his head and said, Brother Wu, please help me and call all the chicken vendors here. No problem. Wu Han quickly ran out and called all the stall owners on the street over. Then he said to Chun Dao, Brother Chun, I've called all the chicken vendors over here. Just tell me how many chickens you need. Chun Dao looked at these stall owners and noticed the expectant look in their eyes. For these stall owners, recent times have been very difficult, and they are naturally eager to sell some goods. However, Chun Dao did not immediately report the quantity he needed. Instead, he asked, Brother Wu, how much is the price of a gray-feathered chicken these days? 181. When Chun Dao heard this number, he immediately knew that the price of food in the city must have risen again. Otherwise, the price of live chickens would not have soared so quickly. Chun Dao turned around and discussed it with Chun Da, then said to the chicken vendors, I'm planning to buy 50 gray feathered chickens at 150 won each. Is that a price you can accept? 50 pieces. This number instantly made the eyes of many chicken stall owners light up. In this year, it is rare to see customers buying 50 chickens at once. This young master, a stall owner who looked to be around 50 years old, looked at Chen Dao and said, "Are you really going to buy 50 chickens? Are you kidding us?" The others also looked at Chen Dao with eager eyes. Although Chen Dao had lowered the price a lot, the number of 50 pieces still made them eager to buy. "Why would I lie to you?" Chen Dao said. He didn't want to buy gray feathered chickens. The yellow feathered chickens he raised at home reproduced so quickly, and they were all yellow feathered as soon as they hatched. Chen Dao would be a fool to buy gray feathered chickens and raise them from scratch. This batch of gray feathered chickens was what Chen Dao wanted. He planned to use all the 8 taels of silver he earned from selling the chickens to buy the gray feathered chickens. 150 coins each. If you can accept that, bring your own chickens here and I'll pay you. If not, just leave. As soon as Chen Dao said this, many stall owners immediately turned around and ran quickly to their stalls, bringing their gray feathered chickens to Chen Dao. "Sir, I have a total of 6 gray feathered chickens here. At 150 coins each, the total is 900 coins. A stall owner pointed at the gray feathered chickens in the chicken cage and said with a flattering face, "Live poultry is not easy to sell in the entire East Market these days. So if you come across such a big spending customer, you absolutely cannot miss it. Okay, Uncle Chun, give him the money." After Chinda took out 1 or 2 taels of silver and gave it to the stall owner left with a happy face. Seeing that Chen Dao paid so readily, other stall owners also took action and presented their chickens to Chen Dao. "Sir, these are my chickens, 5 in total. These are mine, 4 in total. I have 10 of them here, and they cost me 1.5 ounces of silver." The transaction went smoothly. With the money exchanged for the goods, within a quarter of an hour, Chunda had spent most of the 8 taels of silver. The 48 gray-feathered chickens purchased were also kept in chicken cages given by the stall owners and moved to the donkey cart by Chun Cheng and others. "That's too many chickens." Chun Jiang looked at the gray-feathered chickens that kept clucking in the car, his eyes full of envy. He had seen all the transactions between Chun Dao and those stall owners. He had personally seen Chun to take out 8 taels of silver to buy gray-feathered chickens, and he was extremely envious of Chen Da's wealth. How much food can you buy with 8 taels of silver? If a family eats steamed buns every day, it will probably last them for a year or 2, right? "Brother Wu, now that we've bought all the chickens, I'm leaving. Don't forget our business." After buying the chicken, Chen Dao said goodbye to Wu Han and drove a donkey cart to the grain store in the East Market with Chinda and others. Outside the grain store, as soon as the donkey cart stopped, Chen Dao saw a young man in brocade clothes walking out of the grain store, surrounded by several people who looked like guards. The young man glanced at Chen Dao and the others, as well as the gray-feathered chickens that kept clucking in the car. A trace of contempt flashed across his face, but he didn't say anything. He just left in a leisurely manner, surrounded by guards. "Fuck, what kind of a person is this?" Chen Jiang, who was more sensitive, couldn't help but curse. The young man in brocade clothes showed no disdain on his face, which made him extremely angry. P.S. I wish all readers a happy Mid-Autumn Festival and a happy family reunion. Chapter 51, Sweet Bubbling. Speak less. No one will think you are dumb. The young man in brocade clothes was surrounded by people and was dressed exquisitely. It was obvious that he was a nobleman in the city, someone they could not afford to offend. However, although he told Xinjiang to stop talking, Chinda was also very annoyed in his heart. That kind of contemptuous look could easily hurt others' hearts. Fuck it. This time, Chun Jiang didn't stop talking. Instead, he spat on the ground and cursed. "One day, I will trample these rich kids who look down on me under my feet." That young man is obviously a nobleman in the city. It's normal for him to look down on us. Jiang, don't take it too seriously. Chen Si comforted Xinjiang, but he felt bad too. The feeling of being despised was not a good one. As for the 3 Chan Chung brothers, they didn't feel anything. They were probably used to this kind of look. Even in the village, people would occasionally give them similar looks. Gumein. Chen Dao didn't say anything. Perhaps it was because he had lived 2 lives, but he was much more receptive to such things than young men like Xinjiang. In Chen Dao's opinion, the contemptuous eyes of others cannot hurt him at all, so why bother with them? When Chen Dao walked into the grain store, the first thing that caught his eye was the rising grain prices. Rice, 28 won/Jin. Millet, 26 won/Jin. White flour, 20 won/Jin. Sorghum flour, 13 won/Jin. Sorghum, 12 won/Jin. Bran powder, 6 won/Jin. Rice bran, 5 cents per pound. As Chun Dao expected, the price of grain had risen significantly compared to the last time he came. The average price of rice, millet, etc. had increased by 2 to 3 cents. Rice costs 28 won per jin, which is probably not affordable for many people even in the county. Imagine what it meant to have rice cost 28 won per jin in China in the past. Not to mention, it was much easier for ordinary people in China in the previous life to earn $1 than for people in this world to earn a copper coin. From this, we can see how terrible the price of grain at 28 won per caddy was for the common people. "Sir, what kind of food would you like to buy?" A clerk from the grain store came up to greet him warmly. Chun Dao waved his hand and went straight to the grain store owner in front of the counter. "Shopkeeper, I want to buy a lot of grain. I wonder if you can give me a discount." "That might be difficult." The shopkeeper shook his head and said, "The young master of the main family has just come and asked us not to reduce the price." Hearing this, Chun Dao couldn't help but think of the young man in brocade clothes who had just walked out of the grain store. If nothing unexpected happened, that man should be the young master the shopkeeper mentioned. As far as Chun Dao knew, this grain store in the East Market should belong to the Yuan family. In other words, the young man just now should be a member of the Yuan family. These big families are really... Chun Dao sighed secretly. The big families in the county must have a lot of grain reserves. After all, most of the land in Taiping County is in the hands of these big families. The reason why the price has increased is that they're taking advantage of the situation to rob and hoard grain. But haven't these big families ever thought that if the people can't afford to eat and rebel, they will most likely be the first to suffer? Maybe they know but don't care, or maybe they have never taken the peasants seriously. Chun Dao shook his head, dispelling the unnecessary thoughts in his mind, and said to the shopkeeper, "Shopkeeper, I need 200 kilograms of flour, 200 kilograms of rice, 200 kilograms of sorghum, and 300 kilograms of rice bran." Chun Dao reported the amount of food he needed. In fact, Chun Dao's original intention was to exchange most of the silver for food, but considering the limited carrying capacity of the donkey cart, he chose to buy less. The shopkeeper's eyes lit up, and he quickly took out his abacus and began to count. 200 caddies of rice for 5,600 won, 200 caddies of flour for 4,000 won, 200 caddies of sorghum for 2,400 won, and 300 caddies of rice bran for 1,500 won. That's a total of 13 liang, 500 won. Is that correct, sir? The shopkeeper looked at Chun Dao in front of him with a smile on his face, but he was somewhat skeptical in his heart, wondering whether this young man could really come up with so much silver. Yes. Chun Dao, who was good at mental arithmetic, knew the shopkeeper's calculation was correct. So he took out 14 taels of silver from the purse Li Ying had given him and handed it to the shopkeeper. "Shopkeeper, please help me load the grain and move it to the donkey cart outside." "No problem." The shopkeeper readily handed 500 copper coins to Chun Dao, and then asked the clerk to start loading the grain and move the grain to the donkey cart outside. How much food did Brother Dao buy? Outside the grain store, Chun Si, who had been guarding the donkey cart, looked at the bags of grain on the donkey cart with a dazed expression. The eyes of the three Chung brothers lit up. Chun Dao bought so much food, which meant that their previous guess that Chun Dao had no food at home was wrong. It also meant that they would not have to worry about Chun Dao stopping building the house due to food shortage at home. So much food. Brother Dao is so rich. Chun sure said with drooling. With Dao Guer's generosity, he bought so much food. How could he still be short of food for us? When Chun Sure thought about eating delicious steamed buns every day in the future, he felt as if he was soaked in honey water, so sweet that it was bubbling. Chun Dai was looking at the bags of grain being loaded onto the donkey cart with a smile on his face. Although his family still had enough food for the time being, he still felt very reassured when he saw so much food. Soon, a total of 900 kilograms of grain were put onto the donkey cart, almost forming a small mountain on the cart. Chun Dao looked at the occupied carriages and said to them with a smile, "Looks like we'll have to walk back." A large amount of food filled the carriage. Apart from the driver's seat, there was no space for people to sit. Several people could only walk back to the village beside the donkey cart. "What's the big deal?" Chun Chung scratched his head and said with a simple smile, "It's only a dozen miles, not far." Chunda and others also nodded in agreement. For people like them who often do manual labor, a distance of more than 10 miles is not that far at all. Okay, let's go. Chen Dao said, let's go to Baikayatang first. About a quarter of an hour later, the donkey cart stopped outside Baikayatang. Chen Dao asked everyone to wait outside and walked into Baikayatang. When I walked into Baikayatang, I saw that the former owner Su Shihua was not there, and the person sitting behind the counter was Su Qiaoxi. Perhaps because there were not many customers, Su Qiaoxi was dozing off behind the counter, her arm supporting her cheek, revealing a piece of her snow-white wrist. Her pretty face was tilted, as if it was about to fall onto the table at any time, and there was a trace of crystal hanging on the corner of her mouth. Misu. Chen Dao called out softly, but Su Qiaoxi didn't respond at all. Seeing this, Chen Dao couldn't help but laugh. This girl was too unvigilant. The store was open and she fell asleep. Wasn't she afraid that someone would come in and steal things? Misu. Chen Dao knocked on the counter table and raised his voice. Su Qiaoxi suddenly woke up and subconsciously leaned back. It was not until she saw that the person coming was Chen Dao that she breathed a sigh of relief and said, Mr. Chen, it's you. Chen Dao smiled without saying anything and pointed at the corner of Su Qiaoxi's mouth. Chapter 52. Hello, Xiao Yuan. Su Qiaoxi blushed and quickly turned her head away to wipe the saliva from the corner of her mouth. Then she turned to Chen Dao and said, I'm sorry to have embarrassed you, Master Chen. Chen Dao smiled and asked, Why isn't shopkeeper Su here? Grandpa is old and easily fatigued. He is resting in the backyard now. Su Qiaoxi replied, Mr. Chen, do you want to buy medicine or see a doctor? If you want to see a doctor, I'll go wake up Grandpa. If you want to buy medicine, just come to me directly. Chen Dao nodded and said, I want to buy some blood-clotting fruits. No problem, Mr. Chen. How much do you need? Su Qiaoxi was about to turn around and go back to get the blood-clotting fruit, but her eyes suddenly fixed on Xiao Yuan on Chen Dao's shoulder. Wow! Su Qiaoxi's beautiful eyes lit up with surprise. What a cute little kitten. Oh! Xiao Yuan made dissatisfied, whimpering sounds, as if she was not very satisfied with being called a kitten. But Xiao Yuan's call made Su Qiaoxi even more happy. She stared at Xiao Yuan's round, adorable face without blinking, and couldn't help but beg, Master Chen, can you let me hold it? Sure. Chen Dao smiled and nodded, then warned Xiao Yuan, don't hurt anyone. After saying that, Chen Dao took Xiao Yuan off his shoulder and placed it on the counter. So beautiful! Su Qiaoxi picked up Xiao Yuan with joy on her face, her eyes full of doting. She had no resistance to this cute and seemingly harmless little animal. Su Qiaoxi, holding Xiao Yuan, stroked Xiao Yuan's hair from time to time, and even kissed Xiao Yuan's cheek with her round little mouth. It was obvious that she loved Xiao Yuan to the core. After playing with Xiao Yuan for a while, Su Qiaoxi looked up and asked, Master Chen, is its name Xiao Yuan? Hello, Madoka. Su Qiaoxi's slender fingers lightly touched Xiao Yuan's moist nose, and the smile on her face never stopped. After playing with Xiao Yuan for a full quarter of an hour, Su Qiaoxi finally remembered the important matter. She held Xiao Yuan in her arms and said to Chen Dao, Mr. Chen, how many blood-clotting fruits do you need? As many as you can get. Chen Dao said proudly. Su Qiaoxi was stunned for a moment and said, We have quite a lot of blood-clotting fruits in our store. Mr. Chen, are you sure you want them all? Sure. Chen Dao nodded seriously. The blood-clotting fruit he brought back last time was almost used up after raising 8 blood-feather chickens and Xiao Yuan. Now, Chen Dao urgently needed new blood-clotting fruits, and the more the better. Still had more than 80 taels of silver in his hand, was not worried at all about not being able to buy all the blood-clotting fruits in Baikayatang. Then let me help you see how many there are. Su Qiaoxi reluctantly placed Xiao Yuan on the counter and walked into the backyard. Not long after, she returned with a package. She placed it on the table and said to Chen Dao, Mr. Chen, these are all the blood-clotting fruits in our store. There are 150 in total. Would you like to count them? No need. I trust you. Chen Dao's simple words made Su Qiaoxi feel a little warm in her heart. This feeling of being trusted by others is really good. It's 2 taels of silver and 70 coins. 1 coin equals 100 coins, right, Miss Su? That's right. After the transaction was completed, Chen Dao seemed to remember something and asked, Miss Su, have you heard of the herbs blood Ganoderma, phoenix tail flower, iron heart bamboo, and bear blood flower? Chen Dao originally wanted to ask Li Ying about these materials for the blood feather chicken and Xiao Yuan's advancement. After all, Liang had a higher status in Taiping County and might know more. But after Liang took him to see Li Hu, Chun Dao gave up the idea of asking Liang for information. He was just an ordinary person who was not a warrior, and it would be easy for people to make associations if he kept asking about things like herbs. Therefore, Chun Dao had to settle for the second best, and chose to ask Su Qiaoshi at the pharmacy. Su Qiaoshi frowned and thought for a moment after hearing the question, then replied, "Mr. Chun, of the herbs you mentioned, I've only heard of 3, blood Ganoderma lucidum, phoenix tail flower, and bear blood flower." Oh, Chun Dao's eyes lit up. It was not bad to have 3 flavors. He quickly asked, "Excuse me, Miss Su, are they available in the store?" "No." Su Qiaoshi gave a disappointing answer to Chun Dao. "These 3 medicinal herbs are all used by warriors. Our shop can't get them, and we dare not sell them." After saying this, Su Qiaoshi seemed to be afraid that Chun Dao didn't understand. So she continued to explain, "Mr. Chun, you don't know that in the entire Taiping County, all the medicinal herbs used by warriors are monopolized by the 3 major families. Only the 3 major families can sell these herbs. If other pharmacies that don't belong to the 3 major families sell these herbs, and the 3 major families know about it, the consequences will be disastrous. Isn't this too overbearing?" Chun Dao said subconsciously. Sure. Su Qiaoshi put her index finger on her rosy lips, glanced at the door, and said cautiously, "Mr. Chun, please don't say such things again. If others hear this, I'm afraid." Su Qiaoshi probably didn't say anything, but Chun Dao sensed the seriousness of the matter from her reaction. This also showed how much influence the 3 major families had in Taiping County. The people didn't even dare to say a word about them. What's the difference between this and a local emperor? Chun Dao was a sensible person, so he didn't have the nerve to criticize the 3 major families. As for buying advanced materials from the pharmacies run by the 3 major families, the advancement of blood, feather chicken, and xiao yuan is not urgent at the moment. It's not too late to buy them next time you come to the city. So, Chun Dao took the opportunity to say goodbye to Su Qiaoshi. "Miss Su, I will be leaving first." After saying that, Chun Dao turned around and left. But at this moment, Su Qiaoshi said a little embarrassedly, "Mr. Chun, can you stay a little longer?" Chun Dao originally thought that Su Qiaoshi wanted his help with something, but he saw Su Qiaoshi's beautiful eyes staring at Xiao Yuan. Obviously, it was Xiao Yuan she really wanted to keep, not Chun Dao. "All right." Chun Dao nodded. Seeing this, Su Qiaoshi immediately became happy. She picked up Xiao Yuan and started stroking her head wildly, with a doting look on her pretty face. While Su Qiaoshi was playing with Xiao Yuan, Chun Dao was not idle either. He said to Su Qiaoshi, "Miss Su, could you please help me buy some more blood-clotting fruit from your pharmacy?" "Mr. Chun, do you need more blood-clotting fruits?" "Yes, if possible. Miss Su, please help me buy more. I will come here every once in a while to buy them." "No problem." Su Qiaoshi was simple-minded after all, and she didn't ask Chun Dao what he wanted so many blood-clotting fruits for, so she agreed immediately. However, she kindly reminded him, "Mr. Chun, although the blood-clotting fruit has some effect in nourishing qi and blood, it is not advisable to eat too much. Mr. Chun should try to use as little as possible." "I see. Thank you, Miss Su, for reminding me." Another quarter of an hour later, Su Qiaoshi reluctantly handed Xiao Yuan back to Chun Dao, saying with a look of reluctance, "Mr. Chun, come often in the future." Chun Dao naturally knew that Su Qiaoshi hoped Xiao Yuan would come more often instead of herself, but she didn't say anything. She just nodded and said, "Okay, Miss Su." After leaving by Kaitang, Chun Dao said to Chun Cheng and the others who were guarding the donkey cart, "Let's go. Let's go back to the village. Let's go back to the village." The donkey cart started, with Chun Si driving the cart and everyone following the cart, walking slowly out of the city. After leaving the city gate, Chun Dao and others were still greeted by the greedy and hungry gazes of many refugees. The piles of grain on the donkey cart were like carrots hanging in front of the donkey, attracting the refugees' attention so much that they refused to look away. So much food. This grain must weigh at least 1,000 kilograms, right? It would be great if this food was mine. Then my mother and sister wouldn't have to starve to death. There was a gleam of greed in the eyes of the refugees, and they wished they could rush forward and snatch all the food from the donkey cart. Fortunately, when this thought came to their minds, they saw Chun Cheng and others standing beside the donkey cart. Chun Cheng was tall and strong, and looked like someone who was not someone to be trifled with. Chunda and the others did not look like people who were easy to bully either. The many refugees had to suppress their restlessness and watched the donkey cart slowly disappear from their sight. Stop! 1 kilometer away from the city gate, Chunda suddenly grasped the bow, an arrow in his hand, looking at the figure coming at high speed from the opposite side with a serious face. Puff! The figure suddenly stopped 5 meters in front of the donkey cart and knelt on the dirt ground with a thud. Gentlemen, please be kind. As long as you give my child a bite to eat, I will do anything you ask me to do. It was not until this person spoke that Chun Dao and others realized that the person who rushed towards the donkey cart was actually a woman. It's not that Chun Dao and the others have poor eyesight, but the woman is dressed in rags and her face is covered in dirt. When she doesn't speak, it's really impossible to tell her gender. Sir, please give my child some food. She is starving to death. Please. The woman knelt beside the donkey cart, kowtowed again and again, each time with great force, hitting her head deeply into the mud, making her entire forehead black and yellow, like a clay figure. Chapter 53, Liangzhou. Chen Dao looked at the woman in front of him silently. This woman was obviously a refugee. Her clothes were tattered, revealing some of her not-so-fair skin. The woman was holding a child in her arms who looked to be about 5 or 6 years old. The child's eyes were closed, and his face was pale with a bluish tint, which showed that he was hungry and cold. Chen Dao was about to walk towards the woman. Chunda stretched out his hand to stop him, but Chen Dao waved his hand, indicating that it didn't matter. After getting closer, Chen Dao could see more clearly. The woman kneeling in front of the donkey cart was extremely thin, and her tattered clothes looked extremely loose. But in her arms was a little girl, who was already barely breathing. Sir, please give us something to eat. My child is dying. Please. Sir, please save my child. I will do anything as long as I can give him a bite to eat. The woman didn't seem to notice Chun Dao's approach. She just kept knocking her head, and her forehead made a small hole in the ground. Looking at the scene in front of him, Chun Dao couldn't help but have a complicated expression. He is not a heartless person. On the contrary, he is a person who can easily fall into mental exhaustion because of the suffering of others. In his previous life, when Chun Dao was watching Douyin, every time he saw videos showing the sufferings of the world, he felt extremely painful inside. He always wanted to help those suffering people, but he was always powerless. Chun Dao even donated a lot of money to those charities. It was not until he learned about the dirty deeds of those charities that Chun Dao stopped donating and never donated a penny since then. In his previous life, Chun Dao often turned a blind eye to the suffering of others because he had no ability to help others. But now, when the woman knelt in front of him, Chun Dao still couldn't ignore her suffering. Chun Dao walked closer again and whispered to the woman, "Get up." The woman seemed to have not expected a response. She paused in her kowtow and looked up at Chun Dao. "Sir, what did you say?" "Get up and let me see the child," Chun Dao said again. The woman's eyes lit up, and she hurriedly got up from the ground and brought the child, who had been kept warm in her arms, to Chun Dao. Chun Dao carefully examined the girl's face and asked, "Is she hungry?" "Yes, sir, we haven't eaten for 5 days." "I haven't eaten in 5 days." Chun Dao couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Human life is sometimes very fragile, but sometimes it seems to be particularly tenacious. It is really not easy to survive without food for 5 days. Chun Dao waved towards Chun Chung. "Brother Chung, bring the dry food and water bag over here." This time when he went into the city, Chun Dao brought some steamed buns and a water bag with him, in order to prevent himself from going hungry in case of an accident on the road. However, he never thought that they would come in handy here. "Here comes Brother Dao." Chun Chung took off the package of steamed buns from his back and handed it to Chun Dao along with the water bag. "Feed some to your child first." Chun Dao took out a steamed bun and handed it to the woman. The woman took it with surprise, tore off a piece of the steamed bun, and stuffed it into the girl's mouth. The unconscious girl's mouth moved subconsciously, and she chewed and swallowed the steamed bun. Very good. Seeing the girl swallow the steamed bun, the woman quickened her feeding pace, tearing off the bun bit by bit and feeding it into the girl's mouth. At the same time, in order to prevent the girl from choking, the woman also poured some water into the girl's mouth. Soon, the girl finished the whole steamed bun, and her pale face immediately improved a little. Seeing this, the woman finally let go of the burden in her heart and thanked Chun Dao repeatedly. "Thank you, benefactor. I kowtow to you." This woman was also very honest and kowtowed 3 times to Chen Dao. After all, Chen Dao was not used to having others kneel, so he quickly grabbed the woman's wrist and helped her up. No need to kowtow. Okay, benefactor. The woman was very obedient. She quickly stood up and stood in front of Chen Dao stiffly. My benefactor, I keep my word. From now on, I am yours. You can do anything for me. What do you mean by my people? Chen Dao was a little amused. The ambiguity of this question was too great, so Chen Dao had to ignore it and asked, What's your name? My name is Ding Xiaohua, and my daughter's name is Qiu Jia. Where's your husband? My husband starved to death a long time ago. On the way to escape famine, he left his last food to my daughter and me, and then starved to death in the wilderness. When talking about her husband who starved to death, sadness appeared on the woman's face. Chen Dao couldn't help but feel heavy-hearted. Where did you escape from? Liangzhou in the north. Liangzhou. Chen Dao was stunned. This was the territory of Qingzhou. How could refugees from Liangzhou flee to Qingzhou? There are 9 states in the Xia Kingdom. If the map of the Xia Kingdom is viewed as a square grid, the top 3 states from left to right are Liangzhou, Yuzhou, and Mingzhou. The 3 central states are Qingzhou, Jingzhou, and Yuzhou. The lower 3 states are Yuezhou, Xiongzhou, and Haizhou. Although Qingzhou borders Liangzhou, it is still somewhat difficult to imagine fleeing to Qingzhou across the entire state. Why did you come from Liangzhou to Qingzhou? Chen Dao asked in confusion. My benefactor, you may not know that the land of Liangzhou is no longer viable. Ding Xiaohua said with a look of sorrow on her face. Every year Liangzhou has to conscript men to go to the battlefield. Any family with male children cannot escape the government's conscription. Add to that the cold weather, the fields can't grow food, and there are no male children in the family. Now, throughout Liangzhou, who knows how many people have starved to death? At this point, Ding Xiaohua couldn't help but reveal a lingering fear. Those of us who escaped are relatively lucky. Many people who stayed in Liangzhou could only starve to death at home. Is the situation in Liangzhou so bad? Chen Dao was shocked. He had heard from the village scholar Li Zheng that the 3 northern states were bitter and cold places, far less prosperous than Qingzhou, but they shouldn't be this miserable, right? Not only was the weather cold and unable to grow crops, but they also had to face conscription from the government and even a variety of exorbitant taxes. Chen Dao finally understood why there were so many refugees recently. He was afraid that most of these refugees were not from Qingzhou, but had fled from Liangzhou. Taiping County is located at the junction of Qingzhou and Liangzhou. For some refugees living on the border of Liangzhou, it is much easier to come to Qingzhou than to go to the county town, or provincial capital of Liangzhou. This world is too chaotic. Chen Dao sighed secretly. It was not difficult to judge from Ding Xiaohua's description that the people in Liangzhou could no longer survive. And when the people can no longer survive, it is natural for them to rise up in rebellion. Chapter 54. Sailing on Dry Land. To be honest, although Chen Dao did not like the corrupt feudal imperial ruling class, he still did not want the world to be in chaos. Because when the world was in chaos, the people who would suffer the most would always be the common people at the bottom. It's a pity that this kind of thing will not change because of his thoughts. All he can do is to keep himself out of trouble. Chen Dao collected his scattered thoughts, looked at Ding Xiaohua and asked, What are you going to do next? Hearing this, Ding Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, I don't know either. I heard them say that we could survive in Taiping County, so I followed them. But I didn't expect the county to be so far away. My husband and I ate all the food we brought with us on the way. If it weren't for you, my benefactor, I'm afraid even my daughter wouldn't have survived. Tears blurred Ding Xiaohua's eyes and mixed with the dirt on her face, turning into a turbid liquid. Only she herself knew how difficult the journey was. With only a small amount of dry food, she embarked on the road of escape with her husband and daughter. They sailed from the dry land of Liangzhou and walked to the border of Qingzhou on a pair of iron feet. The distance of hundreds of miles was just an hour's high-speed rail journey in the eyes of earthlings. But for Ding Xiaohua, who traveled hundreds of miles on foot, it was a longer journey than the past 20 years of her life. Along the way, she, her husband, and her daughter ate wind and dew when they were thirsty and relied on the limited food they had when they were hungry. They even, due to lack of food, her husband starved to death on the road. Ding Xiaohua was particularly grateful that she met the kind-hearted Chen Dao and his group. Otherwise, even her daughter might have starved to death here. Well, Chen Dao sighed lightly. looked at Ding Xiaohua's tear-stained face, took out a steamed bun from his bag, and handed it to Ding Xiaohua. When feeding Ding Xiaohua's daughter before, Chen Dao noticed the desire that flashed in Ding Xiaohua's eyes. Obviously, Ding Xiaohua herself had not eaten for a long time and was burning with hunger. "Thank you, sir." Ding Xiaohua was obviously very hungry. She said thank you and grabbed the steamed bun and gobbled it up. "If you want, you can come with me. If you don't want, that's fine too. Just continue to the county town. I'm willing to go with you, my benefactor. I'm willing to go with you." Ding Xiaohua nodded hurriedly. She was not stupid. She knew that she might not survive if she went to the county town. Instead, she had hope of survival if she followed Chen Dao. As for whether it was appropriate for a widow like me to follow a group of grown men with my daughter, Ding Xiaohua was too lazy to even consider this kind of thing. Poverty may not make people sell their dignity, but hunger can. If you can't even survive, how can you care about the difference between men and women? Then let's go. The donkey cart started again, and the heavy cargo on the cart pressed deep ruts on the dirt road. Chinda, Chun Chung, and others guarded the left and right sides of the donkey cart, always keeping an eye on any movement in the nearby woods. Ding Xiaohua followed the crowd with her daughter on her back, her eyes shining, as if she saw hope of survival. After walking for a while, Xiaoyuan on Chun Dao's shoulder suddenly made a sound. Chun Dao, who was with Xiaoyuan day and night, noticed that Xiaoyuan's cry was different this time and immediately signaled everyone to stop. At the same time, figures appeared one after another in the woods on the right side of the official road. "It's the thieves hiding in the woods." Chunda stared sharply to the right, feeling heavy in his heart. When taking the official road, the most feared things are the bandits hiding in the forest. These bandits may not be very powerful, but they are very good at robbing goods. They regard the convoys transporting goods as prey and specifically target the convoys with more wealth and goods. The group of forest bandits that appear at this time were obviously eyeing the food on the donkey cart of him and others. Chun Chung and others also looked nervous and felt a little uneasy. This was the first time they encountered these thieves called forest bandits on the official road. In the sight of several people, more and more figures appeared from the woods and soon exceeded double digits. The weapons of these forest bandits were varied. Some held wooden sticks with iron or stone spearheads at the front, some held knives, and of course, some held the simplest weapons such as stones and wooden sticks. "Those guys," a bearded man stepped out of the crowd and said with a smile, "Give us half of the food on the cart and leave that woman behind, and I'll let you go." "That's right. Leave half of the food and the women behind, and you can leave safely. Hand over half of the food on the cart, or we'll be rude to you. Leave half of the treasure." The other minions loudly echoed the bearded man's words. If they were not forced to, they would still be unwilling to fight with Chun Dao and his gang. After all, Chun Chung was really intimidating. Besides, Chun had already grasped the bow in his hand, with the arrow on the bowstring, and was aiming at them. Chun Dao looked at the thief opposite him calmly, with no expression on his face. These thieves looked no better than the refugees outside the county town. They were all ragged, pale, and thin. Only the bearded man in the lead was a bit sturdy. Of course, although these forest bandits look very thin, the weapons in their hands are still somewhat threatening. In addition, they are numerous and powerful, so ordinary freight convoys are unwilling to provoke them, and most of them will choose to spend money to avoid disaster. This group of thieves wanted too much. They wanted half of the food on the cart and even planned to kidnap Ding Xiaohua. Not to mention Chun Dao. Even Chunda couldn't accept this kind of thing. General Chun aimed his bow and arrow at the bearded man in the lead and said in a negotiating tone, "My dear men, half the food is too much. Can we discuss it?" "No," the bearded man said without hesitation. "My brothers have worked so hard to come out here, but they can't even bring back half a cart of food. I'm afraid I won't be able to explain to them." "That's right. We must hand over half of the food. Boss, let's just kill them. That way, all the food will be ours." "That's right. Kill them. The government has no control over this place anyway. Kill them." The bearded man's minions were stirring up trouble without thinking about it. Most of the lower-level minions didn't think too much about it. They just subconsciously thought that since they had more people and the other side had fewer people, they could just rely on their numbers to kill all the people on the other side. Then the food and women on the carts would be theirs. There was no need to bargain with Chun Dao and others. Listening to his men's jeers, the bearded man didn't say anything. He just stared at Chunda and Chun Chung, who posed the greatest threat, and said in a threatening tone, "I'll give you a quarter of an hour to think about it. Hand over half of the food in that woman or die." Chapter 55, Madoka Magica. Ding Xiaohua was so scared that her face turned pale. Oh no, her face was already covered with dirt, so it would have been dirt-colored even if she wasn't scared. She was trembling all over, holding the unconscious child tightly, her eyes fixed on Chun Dao and others, fearing that Chun Dao and others would hand her over. Chun Da frowned, thinking about countermeasures. As for Chun Jiang and his companions, although they were nervous, they still stared directly at the thieves opposite them without showing any fear. Only Chun Chung showed no fear at all. Instead, he asked Chun Dao, "Brother Dao, do you want me to beat them up?" Chun Dao shook his head, said nothing, and just sighed in his heart. From a certain perspective, these thieves on the opposite side can also be regarded as miserable people. They may be just honest farmers who were forced to become thieves by this cruel world. But no matter what kind of people they were, when they threatened Chun Dao's property or even his life, they became Chun Dao's enemies. "Madoka, kill them." "Oh my." Xiao Yuan responded immediately and jumped off Chun Dao's shoulders. The moment she landed, Xiao Yuan bounced out and turned into a shadow in everyone's sight. "What is that?" Before the bearded man could see Xiao Yuan's movements clearly, he heard screams behind him. "Ah!" 3 bloodlines suddenly appeared on the neck of a thief, holding a wooden stick as a weapon behind the bearded man. The bloodlines gradually expanded in the field of vision, and then blood gushed out, dyeing the thief in front of him bloody. What the hell? The thief whose face was sprayed with blood retreated in fear, and the other thieves' pupils also shrank, and they were frightened. "Careful," the bearded man hurriedly reminded everyone. But just as he finished his words, another scream was heard. The subordinate whose face was sprayed with blood also had a fatal wound on his neck. Blood spurted out like a fountain, staining the nearby fallen leaves and soil red. "Damn it, what the hell is this?" Xiao Yuan's speed was so fast that the bearded man couldn't even catch its movements. As for Qin Sheng and others, they were stunned. They had seen the cat on Chun Dao's shoulder before, and had always thought it was just a pet raised by Chun Dao, but they never thought that pet that looked extremely beautiful and harmless was so lethal that it was so fast that even their eyes could not catch up. That 9-segmented wolf is so powerful. Chunda was even more shocked. Xiao Yuan was the one he had personally given to Chun Dao. Before he gave it to Chun Dao, Xiao Yuan was the epitome of silly cuteness. She looked stupid, had no attack power, and was good for nothing except her looks. He even planned to kill Xiao Yuan for her meat and sell her fur. Thinking of this, Chunda couldn't help but shudder all over. This 9-section wolf had only been handed over to Chun Dao for a few days, but it had already become so powerful. Would it remember that he was planning to kill it and take revenge on him? Just when Chunda was wondering whether Xiao Yuan would take revenge on him, the screams in the forest continued. Xiao Yuan nimbly and swiftly moved among the thieves. Every attack he made was fatal. Every time he swung his claws, it would leave a fatal scar on a thief's neck. A large amount of blood spurted onto the ground, dyeing the fallen leaves red. Looking at his men falling to the ground one after another, the bearded man almost collapsed. What the hell is this? The bearded man's hands and feet were cold. He had never expected that these people, whom he regarded as fat sheep, would have such a ghostly thing in their hands. Not only were they extremely fast, but their attacks were also extremely sharp. He could not find any room to fight back. He could only watch his men fall to the ground helplessly one after another. A few more screams were heard. The bearded man looked back and saw that all his men had fallen to the ground. The gushing blood gathered into a small stream on the ground. It was at this time that the bearded man finally saw Xiao Yuan's figure clearly. He found that it was a cat-like animal with a round face covered with white and brown hair, a moist nose, and looked harmless. But it was this harmless animal that slaughtered all of his men in just a few breaths. This is not a harmless little animal at all. It is clearly a monster that wants to take your life. Puff! There was a pain in his neck, and the bearded man felt the strength in his body was constantly draining away. Gradually, his vision became blurred, his whole body went limp, and he fell to the ground covered with fallen leaves. All dead. Chun Jiang stared with wide eyes, his pupils trembling slightly as he looked at the bodies lying on the ground. Chun Sheng and his companions were also looking at the thieves who were all killed with shock on their faces, and they were horrified in their hearts. In just a few breaths, more than 10 thieves were killed, and they couldn't even resist. Everyone looked at Xiao Yuan, who had jumped onto Chun Dao's shoulder again, and their impression of his pretty, harmless kitten was completely changed. How could this kitten be harmless? The king of hell, who claims lives, could only be like this, right? Brother Dao. Chun Dao licked his face and came to Chun Dao silently. He said cautiously, "Is this 9-segmented wolf the one I gave you a few days ago?" "Yes." The answer given by Chun Dao immediately made Chun Dao feel hopeless. "It's over. This 9-section wolf is so powerful. I was thinking of killing it a few days ago. It will definitely take revenge on me, right?" When Chun was a child, he heard an old hunter in the village say that the 9-segmented wolf was a very petty animal and would never let go of anyone who wanted to kill it for meat. "Don't worry, Uncle Chun. Xiao Yuan isn't that stingy." Chun Dao gently stroked Xiao Yuan's head and comforted Chun Dao. Xiao Yuan even whimpered twice in cooperation, as if echoing what Chun Dao said. Only, Chun Dao looked at Xiao Yuan, waving its 2 front paws as if to demonstrate to him, and he always felt a little cold. "All right, let's continue back to the village." Chun Dao welcomed the day's crowd, restarted the donkey cart, and headed along the official road towards Qinjia Village. Qinjia Village. Near Chun Dao's construction site, idle villagers gathered in groups of 3 or 4. Ever since Chun Dao's family started building their house, this place has become a gathering place for villagers. They gather here to watch the fun and chat to pass the time. Secondly, it will be warmer with more people, and they can help each other resist the cold weather. Brother Dao and the others haven't come back yet? A middle-aged woman looked towards the village entrance and said that as early as that morning, the news that Chun Dao and others were going to the city had spread throughout Qinjia Village. The villagers also knew that Chun Dao and others would not start work today, but this did not prevent them from gathering here to chat. Chapter 56, Huge Numbers. Brother Dao and his friends have gone to the city to buy food. They are so rich. A male villager said with envy. The others also nodded repeatedly. Dao's family and the Chun family are living better than the village chief now. Of course not. Even Chun Sheng and his fat bastards can eat white flour buns every meal. How can the village chief's family eat white flour buns every meal? Brother Dao's family is living a life like a god. I wonder how much food Brother Dao will buy this time. The villagers' conversations always revolved around the wealth of Chun Dao's family. When they talked about Chun Dao's family, their faces were full of longing and envy. But even though they are envious, after so many days, the villagers have probably gotten used to it. Although they still can't help but feel envious when talking about Chun Dao, they can finally treat it with a normal attitude. However, their composure will soon disappear. Just as everyone was chatting, a donkey cart slowly drove towards the village entrance. Looking at the grain bags piled up like a mountain on the cart, the villagers who were watching the fun almost turned green with envy. Isn't that the village chief's donkey cart? Yes, there was a scar on the donkey's forehead. I remember it clearly. Damn it, this donkey cart is full of grain. How much grain is that? Those grain bags down, there are obviously rice. Damn, there's so many bags. How much rice are there? Look at the ruts, they're so deep, they're practically sinking into the ground. I estimate there must be over 1,000 pounds of grain. I think it must be at least 2,000 pounds. Less, at least 3,000 pounds. The villagers' speeches were quite reminiscent of those during China's Great Leap Forward period. They never stopped saying shocking things. If they said 1,000 kilograms was a bit accurate, but if they said 2,000 kilograms or 3,000 kilograms, that was really outrageous. If you put 3,000 kilograms of grain on this wooden donkey cart, it will fall apart in minutes, and the wheels may even be broken. Even if it doesn't fall apart, I'm afraid that this load-bearing capacity is not something a donkey can possess. The reason for such shocking remarks is that the villagers spoke without thinking due to extreme shock. At this moment, every one of the villagers had their eyes glued to the donkey cart, as if they were looking at a mountain of gold and silver. From a certain perspective, the food on the donkey cart is indeed as precious as mountains of gold and silver to the villagers, or even more precious than gold and silver. After all, in this era, having no money is nothing. Having no food at home is the real way to starve to death. Brother Dao, a young man named Chun Go, couldn't help but come to the side of the donkey cart, next to Chun Dao, and asked with salivating eyes, "Are you going to empty the grain store in the county town?" Brother Go is joking. Chun Dao responded with a smile. "I only bought 900 kilograms of grain. How can I empty the grain store? 900 pounds. Chun Go was like being struck by lightning. His whole body froze. 900 kilograms of food was already an astronomical figure for him. Yet, Chun Dao even used the word but. These were just two words, coupled with the figure of 900 pounds. Chun Go almost couldn't help but punch Chun Dao in the face. It was so damn infuriating. It's actually 900 kilograms. Brother Dower's family is really rich, right? Even the landlords don't have so much food at home. Look at those big bellies of Chun Changs. Their mouths are almost crooked with laughter. Brother Dao bought so much food. How could he possibly leave them without food? The three Chun Chung brothers really paid the price. They followed Brother Dao and ate a lot every day, their mouths full of oil. I also want to work with Dao Gur. Why does Dao Gur look down on me? I want to marry Dao Gur. I want to eat steamed buns every day. Under the envious gaze of the villagers, the donkey cart slowly stopped in front of Chun Da's house. Squeak! Li Ping and He Tzulian, who had heard the noise a long time ago, opened the front door and said with a smile, "Are you back?" Chun Dao nodded and said to Chun Chung and the others, "Brother Chung, please help me move the food in." "Look at what you said, Brother Dao. This is nothing but trouble." Chun Chung was always the most active worker. He started to transport food with his two brothers. Chun Da, Chun Jiang, and Chun Si also joined in. As for Chun Dao, he naturally didn't need to do this kind of work. "Brother Dao, how much food did you buy?" Li Ping looked at the bag after bag of food being moved from the car into the house and couldn't help asking. Even He Tzulian was staring at Chun Dao, waiting for his answer. "A total of 900 kilograms. Chun Dao finished speaking. Li Ping and He Tzulian instantly fell into a state of stiffness. What is the concept of 900 kilograms of food? In a peaceful year, this figure wouldn't be considered too large, only about 3 mu of land. But in this year, 900 kilograms of grain, that is a huge number. It's no exaggeration to say that if all the grain reserves of the more than 100 households in Xinjia village were added together, it might not even reach 900 kilograms, not to mention rice bran, wheat bran, etc. And Chun Dao went to the county town and brought back so much food. I originally wanted to buy one weighing 2,000 to 3,000 kilograms, but the donkey cart couldn't hold it all, so I could only buy 900 kilograms. Chun Dao's additional words instantly plunged Li Ping and He Tzulian's brains into a more prolonged state of shutdown. 3,000 kilograms of grain. This is a number that the two women had never dreamed of. "Dower, where do you get the money to buy so much food?" Li Ping asked subconsciously. "Don't ask me about this, mother. I have my own way." Chun Dao smiled and perfunctorily passed by, then stepped aside to reveal Ding Xiaohua behind him. "Mom, let me introduce you. This is Ding Xiaohua, a refugee from Qingzhou. I felt sorry for her, so I brought her back." After hearing Chun Dao introduce herself, Ding Xiaohua quickly stepped forward and said nervously, "Hello, Annie." From the conversation between Chun Dao and Li Ping, Ding Xiaohua already knew Li Ping's identity. She was Chun Dao's mother. The Xia kingdom ruled the world with filial piety, and the mother had a very important position in the family. Therefore, when facing Li Ping, Ding Xiaohua was very afraid that Li Ping would be dissatisfied with her and drive her away. If Ding Xiaohua couldn't stay at Chun Dao's house, she would have nowhere to go and could only try her luck in the county town. A refugee from Qingzhou, Li Ping frowned and looked at Ding Xiaohua in front of her. She saw that the woman was wearing a tattered linen dress and was covered in dirt. Even her face was covered with dust and dirt. She was carrying an unconscious child on her back, which made people feel sympathy for her. Chapter 57, Never Experienced Before. Li Ping didn't mind Ding Xiaohua's dirtiness at all. She stepped forward, held Ding Xiaohua's hand, and said distressfully, "Miss, are you from Liangzhou?" "I fled from Liangzhou with my man." Ding Xiaohua nodded and told the story of her escape. After listening to it, not only Li Ping was moved, but even He Tzulian couldn't help feeling a little sad. Carrying only a small amount of food, they traveled hundreds of miles from Liangzhou to Taiping County. Even if one thinks with their toes, they know how difficult it was to come this far. Even Ding Xiaohua's husband starved to death on the road. It is hard to imagine how Ding Xiaohua, after her husband starved to death and she lost the person who supported her, could walk the rest of the journey with a child relying on a pair of iron feet. It's really not easy for this girl. Zulian sighed softly. She didn't know how the world had become like this, but she couldn't help but feel sympathy for Ding Xiaohua. Li Ping did the same. She held Ding Xiaohua's hand tighter, as if to lend her some strength. "Miss, go take a shower first. We'll take care of the child." "Thank you, Auntie." Ding Xiaohua's eyes were filled with tears, and her heart was full of gratitude. Li Ping's benefactor's mother not only did not despise her at all, but was so considerate and noticed the dirt on her body. This kind of care was something Ding Xiaohua had never experienced since she fled. "Go quickly, leave the child to me." Li Ping gestured for Ding Xiaohua to take a shower while saying to Zulian, "Sister get Xiaohua some clothes." "Okay." Bathing for poor people is naturally not as complicated as for rich people. After Ding Xiaohua washed off the dirt on her body with hot water, she put on Zulian's clothes and returned to the front yard. It was not until then that Chen Dao could clearly see Ding Xiaohua's appearance. Ding Xiaohua's facial features were barely regular, and even though her skin was a little dark, this was normal. After all, no matter who it would be difficult to maintain fair skin after walking hundreds of miles in the wind and sun. What surprised Chen Dao the most was Ding Xiaohua's age. He had always thought that Ding Xiaohua, who had a 5 or 6-year-old child, should be in her 30s. But now, looking at her slightly green face, she might not even be 20 years old. Chen Dao thought about it and decided to call Ding Xiaohua big sister. "Sister Ding, how old are you?" "My benefactor, I'm 20 years old this year." Chen Dao opened his mouth, gaining a deeper understanding of the prevalence of early marriage in this world. A 20-year-old with a 5 or 6-year-old child, didn't that mean? Ding Xiaohua had already been married at 14 or 15 and had successfully given birth to a child. This marriage age and childbearing age. Chen Dao's mouth twitched. Isn't it too early for people in this world to get married? Getting married before the age of 15 and even having a child. This kind of thing would have been unthinkable in his previous life. "Let's eat first." At this time, Li Ping, who saw that Chen Sheng and others had finished moving the food, called out and signaled everyone to eat. When Ding Xiaohua, the 3 Chen Sheng brothers, Chen Si, Chen Jiang, and others heard about the meal, their eyes all lit up. "Let's eat." Everyone rushed into the kitchen, only to find that although the Chen family's dining table was large, it couldn't accommodate so many people. So, Chen Dao thought for a moment and said, "Let's take the food to the front yard and eat. We'll leave the kitchen to the women and children." After saying that, Chen Dao grabbed 2 steam buns and a bowl of egg drop soup, walked out of the kitchen first, squatted on the ground in the front yard, and ate the steam buns with the egg drop soup. Chen Sheng and others followed suit, each squatting beside Chen Dao with a steamed bun in their hands. In addition, each of them also held a bowl of egg drop soup in their hands. "It's so comfortable to work for Brother Dao's family." Chen Sheng took a sip of the egg drop soup and said with emotion, "Not only do I have delicious steamed buns, but I also have egg drop soup. I've never had anything so delicious before." "Me too." The 2 brothers Chen Shi and Chen Mu nodded frantically. The time they spent working at Chen Dao's house was the best time for the 3 of them. They had steamed buns every day and even egg drop soup to drink today. In their opinion, the life of the county magistrate was no more than this. You're so happy just drinking egg drop soup. If you get to eat meat in the future, won't you be so happy that you become fools? Chen Dao smiled and said that the egg drop soup was only seasoned with a little salt, and the taste was extremely bland. To him, it was only slightly better than boiled water. As for whether it had an eggy taste, Chen Dao, who often eats eggs, couldn't really taste it, but judging from the performance of Chen Sheng and others, there should be some egg flavor. "Brother Dao, stop making fun of us." Chen Sheng swallowed a mouthful of steamed bun and smiled innocently. "How can we eat meat? If we can really eat meat, I would be willing to become an idiot." Chen Mu, "Me too." Chen Si, "Me too." Chen Dao glanced at the 3 brothers and felt that they were too easily satisfied. They were so happy just eating steamed buns and egg soup that they didn't even dare to dream of a bite of meat. "Just wait, you'll get to eat meat sooner or later," Chen Dao said in his heart. In the kitchen, Li Ping handed a steam bun that was still steaming hot to Ding Xiaohua and said with a smile, "Xiaohua, eat more. You look so thin." After learning about Ding Xiaohua's experience, Li Ping couldn't help but recall the time when she lost her man. During that time, she was also having a hard time like Ding Xiaohua, so she felt particularly sympathetic towards Ding Xiaohua. "Thank you, Auntie." Ding Xiaohua casually looked at the food on the table. To Chen Dao, the food was not worth mentioning, but to her, it was several times better than what she usually ate. Even before fleeing, Ding Xiaohua mostly ate wild vegetables and rice bran. She never had steamed buns or egg drop soup. Ding Xiaohua tore off a small piece of steamed bun and put it in her mouth. She immediately smelled a fragrance. After chewing it, a sweetness spread in her mouth. The taste made Ding Xiaohua, who had not eaten for 5 days, subconsciously squint her eyes, looking intoxicated. Seeing Ding Xiaohua's performance, Li Ping and He Zuilian looked at each other and smiled at the same time. As the chefs who made the steamed buns, they also felt a sense of accomplishment when they saw others showing satisfied performance. As for the 2 younger children, Chun Fei and Chun Tai Dan, they didn't care so much. They were enjoying the delicious egg soup and steamed buns in their mouths. While eating her own steamed bun, Ding Xiaohua did not forget her child. She picked up a steamed bun and said to Li Ping, "Annie, I'll go feed the child first." Ding Xiaohua's child has been temporarily placed in Chun Tiedan's room and is still in a coma. Chapter 58, Boxing. Go, Li Ping Nuda. She understood Ding Xiaohua's concern for the child and did not stop her. So Ding Xiaohua took some steamed buns and water and went to Chun Tiedan's room to feed her child. After dinner, Chun Cheng and others left one after another. Chen Dao went back to his room and lay down. He wanted to take out the Subduing Tiger Fist manual to take a look, but it was too tiring to read in the dark, so he had to give up the idea and fell asleep in bed before long. The next day, when Chen Dao woke up, Chen Dao had already left home and gone to the construction site. In the kitchen, Li Ping and He Zuilian were busy preparing breakfast for everyone. In addition, Ding Xiaohua was also helping in the kitchen. Ding Xiaohua, who received help from others, felt embarrassed to eat for free at home, so she tried her best to help with some work within her ability. Brother Dao is awake. Seeing Chun Dao coming to the kitchen door, He Zuilian greeted him with a smile. Benefactor, rice. Li Ping and Ding Xiaohua also greeted Chen Dao. Mother, auntie, sister Ding. Chen Dao responded to everyone and went straight to the front yard without disturbing their thoughts. Chuckle. Chirp, chirp. The dense crowing of roosters sounded like music in the front yard. After this period of breeding, the number of yellow-feathered chickens in the cage has reached 40, including 12 adult yellow-feathered chickens, 25 young yellow-feathered chickens, and 3 blood-feathered chickens. Before going to the city, Chen Dao raised a total of 8 blood-feathered chickens. He selectively sold 5 of them. As for the remaining 3, Chen Dao planned to keep them for his own use. In Chen Dao's opinion, the warriors in this world mainly cultivate the power of qi and blood, and the role of blood-feather chickens is to strengthen the power of qi and blood. The reason why Chen Dao kept these 3 blood-feather chickens was that he wanted to experiment. In the absence of any martial arts, can eating blood-feather chickens directly help him become a warrior? Even if I can't, at least I can strengthen my body, right? This was Chen Dao's original idea, but now there have been some changes in the plan. Now that he has the Subduing Tiger Fist manual given by Li Hu, it is time to put the matter of becoming a martial artist on the agenda. Although Chen Dao has Xiao He and Xiao Yuan to protect him, Xiao He and Xiao Yuan are animals after all, and it is inevitable that they will be careless sometimes. Therefore, Chen Dao still hopes that he can become a warrior and have some self-protection ability. Besides, even if you don't consider your own safety, becoming a warrior has many benefits. According to Chen Dao's understanding, warriors generally have a longer lifespan. A 9th grade warrior can live to at least 100 years old, and an 8th grade warrior can live to around 120 years old. For the sake of your own life, becoming a warrior is imperative. Chen Dao returned to the house, took out some food to feed the chickens, then took out the Fu Hu Quan manual and began to read it in the early morning light. The boxing manual booklet was not thick, and Chen Dao finished reading it in about a quarter of an hour. So this is how the skills in this world work. Chen Dao looked at the 4 big characters, Fu Hu Quan Pu, on the cover and fell into deep thought. According to the description in the Subduing Tiger Fist manual, the martial arts in this world are divided into 9 grades, and the Subduing Tiger Fist is a skill that can only be practiced by 7th grade warriors. The method of practicing Subduing Tiger Fist is also very simple. You only need to follow the moves in the boxing manual and practice them one by one to increase your qi and blood. But the boxing manual also said that with the physical strength of ordinary people, practicing the tiger's subduing fist once a day is already the limit. If you force yourself to practice more than that, it will inevitably damage the body's essence and cause physical deficiency. Even for those who are gifted and naturally strong, 3 times a day is the limit. If they force themselves to practice more, it will also damage the essence of the body and cause deficits. At this time, some medicinal herbs that strengthen qi and blood come in handy. A strong body can accommodate more qi and blood, and more qi and blood will also feed back to the body. After using herbs that strengthen qi and blood, one's own qi and blood are nourished and fed back to the body, which will then be able to perform exercises with greater intensity. After doing this continuously, qi and blood will increase again, forming a positive cycle. So, this is why both martial arts techniques and resources are indispensable in this world, and why resources are even more important than martial arts techniques. Chen Dao finally understood why Li Hu said that the martial arts skills were worthless, because even if you give the subduing tiger fist to an ordinary person to practice, he will not be able to become a martial artist. The energy and blood gained by practicing the subduing tiger fist once is very weak, and an ordinary person can only practice it once a day. After practicing for a year or 2, the energy and blood gained is probably far from that of a 9th grade martial artist. Only those wealthy children and dignitaries who have no shortage of resources have enough resources to become warriors. However, this martial art is almost impossible for ordinary people to practice, but Chen Dao doesn't need to worry at all. Although he didn't have any medicinal herbs to strengthen his qi and blood, he had blood feather chicken. Li Hu's performance when eating chicken blood has proved that even if it is just chicken blood, the effect of the blood feather chicken is better than the medicinal materials used by ordinary warriors. From a certain perspective, the blood feather chickens Chen Dao possesses are endless, which is equivalent to having endless resources for practicing martial arts. Is he still afraid that he cannot become a warrior? Try this subduing tiger fist first. After Li Ping and others carried the food buckets out to feed Chen Sheng and others, Chen Dao stood up from the threshold and tried to perform the tiger subduing fist. The fighting style of the subduing tiger fist is far more advanced than those turtle fists in his previous life. Each move consumes a lot of physical strength. In a short while, Chen Dao was out of breath, with sweat dripping from his forehead. After completing a round of Fu Hu Quan, Chen Dao looked like he had been fished out of the water. Not only were his clothes soaked, but his face was extremely pale, and it seemed like he might faint at any moment. No wonder Li Hu reminded me that with my body, I can only practice the subduing tiger fist once a day. Chen Dao muttered to himself breathlessly. His body was severely deficient and very thin due to long-term malnutrition. After a round of subduing tiger fist, he felt as if his whole body was hollowed out, and he didn't even want to move a finger. I can't feel if my qi and blood strength has increased. Chen Dao tried to sense the situation inside his body, but found that he couldn't sense anything at all. Is it because the increase is too small that I don't feel anything? Chen Dao pondered for a moment, walked to the chicken coop, and took out a blood-feathered chicken. Then he brought the blood-feathered chicken to the kitchen, picked up a kitchen knife, and cut the blood-feathered chicken's throat. Chuckle. The blood-feathered chicken let out its last wail of life, and blood fell and gathered into the bowl that Chen Dao had already prepared. After collecting the chicken blood, Chen Dao temporarily placed the blood-feathered chicken's body in the kitchen and went to the front yard with the bowl. Chapter 59. Chicken Blood. Li Hu is an 8th rank warrior, yet he reacted so strongly after drinking all the chicken blood in one gulp. My health is much worse than Li Hu's, so I'll just drink less. Chen Dao thought about it and took a sip of blood. What surprised Chen Dao was that the chicken blood tasted pretty good. The fishy smell is very light, and the taste is a little sweet. Chen Dao smacked his lips, savoring the taste of chicken blood. The next moment, he felt a warm current rising in his stomach. This warm current spread from his stomach to his limbs. Chen Dao felt warm all over and very comfortable. It seems like your depleted energy is recovering rapidly. Chen Dao felt it carefully. As the warmth in his body spread, his strength was recovering rapidly. In a short while, Chen Dao felt that he could perform the tiger subduing fist again. The effect of his chicken blood is so good. Chen Dao's eyes lit up, and he quickly got into position and continued to practice the tiger subduing fist. After finishing a round of Fu Hu fist, Chen Dao was out of breath again. Sweat soaked his clothes and dripped onto the ground. More chicken blood. Chen Dao picked up the bowl beside him and took a big sip of chicken blood. The familiar warm current rose from his stomach again, and this time it was much stronger than the last time, making Chun Dao's exposed skin red like a cooked crab. Keep punching. Drink chicken blood. Do boxing. Drink chicken blood. Do boxing. Chun Dao fell into an endless cycle of boxing practice. Chun Dao didn't stop until he had finished drinking all the chicken blood in the bowl and performed the tiger-subduing fist 10 times, exhaling a breath of white air. It works great. Chun Dao carefully felt the condition inside his body. He couldn't know the specific increase of his qi and blood. He could only feel it vaguely, but the condition of his body was very obvious. After performing the tiger-subduing fist 10 times, Chun Dao felt that his strength had increased a lot. In the past, he even had difficulty lifting a bucket of water, but now, Chun Dao felt that he could lift 2 buckets of water in one breath. At this rate, it won't be long before I become a 9th grade warrior. The symbol of a 9th grade warrior is that each arm has a strength of 200 kilograms. Chun Dao is still a little far from this distance. According to his own guess, his current arm strength is at most about 40 kilograms, which is not even as good as the average arm strength of adult men in his previous life, 20 to 30 kilograms. However, Chun Dao was not discouraged. After practicing the tiger-subduing fist 10 times, his frail body had acquired arm strength close to that of an adult male in his previous life. He only needed to practice the tiger-subduing fist diligently and combine it with blood feather chicken blood and blood feather chicken, and becoming a warrior was only a matter of time. I wonder how effective the blood feather chicken is. Chun Dao returned to the kitchen and looked at the dead blood-feathered chicken. After thinking for a moment, he started cooking. "Dao, what are you doing?" But at this moment, Li Ping and the other 2 returned with rice buckets and saw Chun Dao cooking in the kitchen. They couldn't help but ask in confusion. "I'll cook a chicken," Chun Dao replied casually. "Ugh." Li Ping and He Tzuilian didn't say anything. They had long been accustomed to Chun Dao's extravagance, or rather his willful behavior. In their opinion, Chun Dao was a capable man who could find a secret method of raising chickens and bring back so much food. He had the right to waste it. But Ding Xiaohua, who was following Li Ping and He Tzuilian, was stunned. It's broad daylight, there's no work to do, and the physical exertion isn't that great. Yet you want to cook a chicken? Isn't that too extravagant? And looking at the reactions of Li Ping and He Tzuilian, they had no objection to Chun Dao's behavior. This means that Ding Xiaohua is not a Chinese from Earth. Otherwise, she would probably ask that classic question, what kind of family is this? This little benefactor's family is too wealthy. Ding Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Even a rich landlord wouldn't dare to be so extravagant as to just kill a chicken and eat it. Chun Dao naturally didn't notice Ding Xiaohua's reaction, as he was boiling water at the time. Chun Dao didn't plan to fry this blood feather chicken, but to stew it directly in boiling water. "Mom, please help me hollow out the chicken's internal organs." "Here I come." After Li Ping helped to hollow out the chicken's internal organs, Chun Dao put the chicken in a boiling water to blanch it, and then began to pluck the feathers. After plucking all the feathers, Chun Dao boiled another pot of water, put the whole chicken into the pot, sprinkled in some salt, then covered the pot, and started stewing. "Brother, what are you cooking?" Chun Fei was indeed a foodie. She smelled something and ran into the kitchen, standing on tiptoe, trying to see what was cooking in the pot. "This time the food I cooked is not delicious." Chun Dao touched Chun Fei's head and had no intention of sharing some chicken with her. It was not that Chun Dao was reluctant, but Chun Fei was still young, and blood feather chicken meat was a great tonic for qi and blood. Chun Dao didn't know if Chun Fei could hold on. "Yeah." Chun Fei wrinkled her nose suspiciously, but she still trusted her brother. After hearing Chun Dao say that it was not delicious, she quickly ran out of the kitchen and returned to the front yard to play with Xiao Yuan with Chun Taidan. About half an hour later, Chun Dao opened the lid of the pot, and immediately a rich aroma of meat filled the entire kitchen and even spread outside the kitchen. "Dao's stewed chicken is so delicious." Li Ping, who was chatting with Ding Xiaohua and He Tzuilian in the living room, said with a smile. Ding Xiaohua and He Tzuilian nodded at the same time. Ding Xiaohua even swallowed her saliva. For her, who had gone 5 days without food and felt hungry and burning in the stomach, the aroma of meat was extremely attractive. Fortunately, Ding Xiaohua had 2 full meals since she moved into Chen's house yesterday, so she didn't lose her composure. "This chicken is really special." In the kitchen, Chun Dao opened the lid of the pot and observed the chicken in the pot. He saw that the chicken of the blood feather chicken was completely different from ordinary chicken. After being cooked, it turned red, and even the soup turned red. No wonder it has such a good effect in nourishing qi and blood. Chundao took the chicken out of the pot and put it on a plate. He didn't intend to waste the chicken soup, but to give it to his family and Chun Sheng and others who were working to try. Mom, try this chicken soup. Chundao walked out of the kitchen and served a bowl of soup to Li Ping, He and Ding Xiaohua respectively. The three of them took the soup and drank it in one gulp. It tastes great. Li Ping nodded and gave an affirmative answer. Although this chicken soup was cooked with plain water and at most a little salt, it was full of meat flavor. It's delicious. Ding Xiaohua's evaluation was even simpler and more direct. To her, everything that tasted like meat was the most delicious food in the world. It's really delicious. He also gave a positive review. Chun Dao asked, "Do you feel anything special after drinking the chicken soup?" "A special feeling." Li Ping frowned and thought for a moment before answering. "It seems like after drinking the soup, my body is warmed up a bit and I'm not feeling so cold anymore." Chapter 60, It smells so good. Me too. Ding Xiaohua and He also gave similar answers. This chicken soup is indeed quite unique. The soup is light red in color. After drinking it, the coldness in the body seems to be dispelled, and the whole body feels warm as if it is in a warm winter. Really? Chen Dao looked thoughtful. It seemed that the chicken soup had only a slight nourishing effect, far inferior to chicken blood. He just didn't know how effective the chicken would be. "Mom, there's some chicken soup in the room. Give it to your uncle and the others to try." "Let me do it." Ding Xiaohua stood up actively, went into the kitchen, picked up the wooden bucket containing soup, and then went out and headed straight for the construction site. Chun Dao tore off a fragrant chicken leg and started cooking. Although the stewed chicken was seasoned with only a little salt, it was still very soft and tender after being stewed for half an hour and had a rich meaty aroma that made Chun Dao's mouth water. Soon, Chun Dao ate all the meat from the chicken leg. At this moment, a warm current also rose in Chun Dao's stomach, but this warm current seems to be different from chicken blood. Chun Dao carefully felt the changes in his body. When he drank the chicken blood, his body reacted greatly. He could feel that the blood in his body seemed to be boiling, making him eager to vent the excess energy in his body. The feeling of eating chicken is completely different from that of eating chicken blood. Although it can also produce a warm current in the body and nourish qi and blood, the effect is not as strong as that of chicken blood. It seems to nourish the body slowly and silently. Chun Dao continued to eat the stewed chicken. Since he had just fought a boxing match, he had consumed a lot of energy and his appetite was also great. In a short while, he finished the whole chicken. As he finished eating the whole chicken, the warm current in Chun Dao's body became stronger, but the effect was relatively mild. It just made Chun Dao feel warm all over, not like chicken blood, which made people have the urge to vent all their energy immediately. It seems that the nourishing effect of chicken is relatively mild, and it is a gradual nourishment. Chun Dao pondered for a while and went to the bathroom to take a shower. While Chun Dao was taking a shower, Ding Xiaohua had already arrived at the construction site, carrying a wooden bucket and saying to Chunda, "Uncle Chun, this is the chicken soup my benefactor made. He asked me to give it to you to try." Upon hearing this, Chunda immediately shouted, asking Chun Sheng and others to stop what they were doing and gather around Ding Xiaohua. "Uncle, what's the matter?" Chun Sheng asked, scratching his head. "Good thing." Chun laughed and said, "Brother Dao made some chicken soup and asked Xiaohua to bring it over for you to try." Chicken soup. The eyes of the three Chun Sheng brothers, Chun Si and Chun Jiang, all lit up. At the same time, Ding Xiaohua also opened the lid of the wooden barrel. As the lid was opened, a rich fragrance wafted out, and Chun Sheng and others immediately started to salivate. The villagers who were watching the excitement not far away were twitching their noses and swallowing saliva violently. "What's that smell? It smells so good. I remember this smell. It's the aroma of meat. There's no mistaking it." "Meat? Daojur's family even gave them meat? Isn't that too extravagant? How rich is Daojur's family? They're willing to give meat to those who help with the work. I can't remember the last time I ate meat. Mom, I want to eat meat too." "Eat shit. Get out of here." Of course, the villager's guess was wrong. What Chun Dao gave to Chun Sheng and the others was not meat, but chicken soup. But even chicken soup is enough to make Chun Sheng and others salivate. Looking at the greasy and meaty soup floating in the wooden barrel, Chun Qing couldn't help but swallow his saliva and said, "Brother Dao is so kind to us. Not only does he provide us with steamed buns, but he also gives us broth to eat." Chun Shi and Chun Mu nodded frantically. Chun Dao was truly amazing to them. Normally, they couldn't even get enough rice bran to eat, but ever since they started helping Chun Dao, they've had steamed buns every day and never gone hungry. They've even had egg soup from time to time, and now they even have chicken soup. More than 90% of the villagers in the village experience this kind of life. Drink it while it's hot. Ding Xiaohua smiled, took out a bowl, and filled each person with a bowl of chicken soup. Chun Sheng was the first to take a bowl of chicken soup. He smelled the rich aroma of meat in the bowl, but he was reluctant to drink it all in one gulp. Instead, he took a small sip. As the chicken soup entered his mouth, the aroma of meat, which he had not felt for many years, spread in his mouth, stimulating Chun Cheng's taste buds. "It smells so good." Chun Cheng couldn't help but admire. Others also drank the soup and praised it highly. Even Chen Si and Chun Jiang had satisfied expressions on their faces. For them who had only eaten staple food all year round, even a bowl of chicken soup with the aroma of meat was enough to make them feel satisfied. Everyone sipped the soup in small sips, with happy looks on their faces. "Xiaohua, have a bowl too." Chinda noticed the longing look on Ding Xiaohua's face and hurriedly spoke to her. "I still don't want to drink," Ding Xiaohua said a little embarrassedly. "There's not much chicken soup here. You guys have to eat it first when you're doing the hard work." Ding Xiaohua, who came from a rural background, naturally knew that men who did hard work needed to eat more. Although there was no chicken in the chicken soup, it at least had the aroma of meat, which could help men regain some strength. Chinda ignored Ding Xiaohua's refusal and directly filled a bowl of chicken soup and stuffed into Ding Xiaohua's hand. "Uncle." Ding Xiaohua was touched after receiving the chicken soup. Both Chin Dao, who saved her, and Chin Dao's family were so kind to her. She felt the warmth she had never felt before after walking hundreds of miles to Qingzhou. "Drink it." "Thank you, Uncle." Ding Xiaohua did not continue to refuse, but picked up the chicken soup and drank it slowly. "This chicken soup is really good." At this time, Chun Sheng finished his bowl of chicken soup and smacked his lips and said, "After drinking it, I feel warm all over, and it seems that I've gained a lot of strength." "Me too." Chun Shi and Chun Mu nodded frantically, like Chun Cheng's yes men. "If I could eat steamed buns and drink chicken soup every day, I think dying would be worth it." Chun Cheng said again, "Brother Cheng, you're dreaming of living like a landlord." Chun Jiang said jokingly, "Eating steamed buns and chicken soup every day, even landlords and rich people can't live like this." Everyone laughed. Soon, after drinking the chicken soup, everyone continued to work with full energy. Ding Xiaohua carried the wooden barrel back to Chen's house and sat in the living room, chatting with Chun Dao and others. "Mother!" But at this moment, a faint voice was heard. Ding Xiaohua was stunned for a moment, and then a look of surprise flashed across her face. "It's Xiaojia's voice." Ding Xiaohua stood up excitedly and ran straight to the next room. Chun Dao and others looked at each other, then stood up and followed. Chapter 61. Steamed buns are the best. Xiaojia opened her eyes drowsily and looked at the ceiling of the house, feeling a little strange. Her memory still lingered on the road where she depended on her mother for survival. She only remembered that she was very hungry and then lost consciousness. When she woke up again, she was lying on this bed. The unfamiliar environment made Xiaojia feel a little uneasy, and she subconsciously called out Mom. "Diao? Yeah." But at this moment, a voice that Xiaojia was very familiar with came. Xiaojia looked weakly in the direction of the voice and saw her mother. "Mother!" Xiaojia cried out in surprise, and her heart immediately felt much calmer. Parents are a child's greatest support. The moment Xiaojia saw her mother, her fear of the unfamiliar environment instantly dissipated. "Xiaojia, you finally woke up?" Ding Xiaohua quickly walked to the bedside and held Xiaojia's hand tightly. "Mom is so worried about you." "Mother." The mother and daughter held each other's hands. Chun Dao and others who entered the room later looked at this scene and sighed in their hearts. It was really not easy for this mother and daughter to rely on each other and walk hundreds of miles. In other words, they were lucky to meet Chun Dao. Otherwise, they would have died on the road or outside the county town, turning into a pile of dry bones in the wilderness. Ding Xiaohua stepped aside and pointed at Chun Dao, saying to Xiaojia, "This is Master Chun, our benefactor who saved us. From now on, You must remember his kindness and repay him even if you have to work like a slave for him. Got it. Xiaojia, still so young, didn't understand such profound truths. She looked at Chun Dao with her dark eyes and nodded instinctively. I understand, Mom. I will definitely repay you in the future. It's good to know, it's good to know. After a conversation, Xiaojia seemed a little tired. Ding Xiaohua hurriedly found a leftover steamed bun from the kitchen, fed it to Xiaojia, and comforted Xiaojia to sleep. Thank you so much, benefactors. Seeing Xiaojia sleeping, Ding Xiaohua thanked Chun Dao and the others repeatedly, and the gratitude on her face almost became tangible. Before she met Chun Dao, she almost thought her daughter was dead, and she didn't even dare to hope that she could survive. It was Chun Dao who changed their fate. Not only did he let her daughter survive, but he also let them have enough food to eat. Sister Ding, there's no need for this. Chun Dao waved his hand and said, from now on, just call me Chun Dao or Brother Dao. No need to always call me benefactor. Become. Ding Xiaohua readily agreed, and secretly kept Chun Dao's kindness in her heart. In a blink of an eye, it was night. Chun Cheng and others, who had just finished work, were worried when they saw that no one came to deliver food. Uncle. Chun Cheng looked at Chun Da and asked, why hasn't anyone come to deliver the food yet? The other four also looked at Chun Da, waiting for his answer. Chun Da laughed and responded, Xiaohua came to me this afternoon and told me that we're not going to eat at the construction site today. Let's go to my house. Is that so? Chun Cheng and others breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly followed Chun Da home. Are they all here? Seeing everyone come back, Chun Dao, who was feeding the chickens, smiled and said, you are in for a treat today. We will have something delicious to eat tonight. Nice one. Chun Shi's eyes lit up and he quickly asked, is it chicken soup? After tasting a bowl of chicken soup, Chun Shi's favorite food has changed from steamed buns to chicken soup. Of course, his love for steamed buns remains unabated, but it would be even better if steamed buns could be paired with chicken soup. No. Chun Dao shook his head, and disappointment immediately appeared on everyone's faces. At this time, Chun Dao continued, there's no chicken soup, but there is egg soup and chicken offal. Egg soup and chicken giblets. The disappointment on the faces of Chun Cheng and others disappeared, and expressions of surprise spread across their faces. Brother Dao, are there really any chicken offal to eat? Chun Cheng asked with shining eyes. Of course it's true. Come with me. Chun Dao led everyone into the kitchen. Everyone looked at the food on the table. Just as Chun Dao said, there were not only steamed buns on the table, but also a large bowl of egg drop soup and a small plate of chicken offal. Everyone looked at the small plate of chicken offal with a fiery light flashing in their eyes. Of course, the taste of chicken offal is not as good as chicken, but no matter how bad it is still a meat dish. For people like Chun Cheng, who hadn't eaten meat for many years, even a small plate of chicken offal was enough to surprise them. It's just that, although the chicken offal is delicious, the quantity seems a little too small. Chun Dao, Chun Da's family, Ding Xiaohua and her daughter, there were 8 of them, plus myself and the others. In total, and this small plate of chicken offal may not be enough to share. Everyone, give me some chicken offal. Chun Dao smiled and said, just try it. If you want to be full, you still have to rely on steamed buns. As he spoke, Chun Dao picked up the chopsticks and began to divide the chicken offal, giving a little to each of Chun Cheng and the others. Then a group of men came to the front yard with their bowls to eat. As for the women, they stayed in the kitchen to eat. It is worth mentioning that Ding Xiaohua's daughter Xiaojia is already able to get out of bed. She is also sitting at the dining table, next to Chun Fei, looking reserved. Mother. Xiaojia looked at the food on the table, pointed at the plump white buns and asked softly, what is this? It's not that Xiaojia is ignorant, but she was born in the countryside and her family is poor. She has never eaten food like steamed buns, so naturally she doesn't know what these are. But the aroma wafting from the plump white food made Xiaojia swallow her saliva involuntarily. Although she didn't know what kind of food it was, she instinctively felt that this delicious-looking food must be better than what she had eaten before. This is steamed bun. Chun Fei explained to Xiaojia. The steamed buns are delicious. They're even better than white rice. Yes, steamed buns are the best. Chun Taidan agreed and said that ever since he had eaten steamed buns, he no longer liked eating white rice and begged Itzulian to make steamed buns for him every day. Stemmed bun. Xiaojia tilted her head. She had rarely eaten white rice. In her memory, white rice was the most delicious meal. But Chun Fei and Chun Taidan said that steamed buns were more delicious than white rice. This made Xiao Jia want to taste the steamed buns even more, but the unfamiliar environment and people made her subconsciously a little restrained, and she didn't dare to reach out and take the steamed buns on the table. Eat it all. Fortunately, at this time, Li Ping spoke and signaled everyone to start eating. Let's eat. Chun Fei was the fastest. He grabbed a steamed bun and stuffed it into his mouth. Chun Taidan was not slow either. He asked Hitsuilian to serve him a bowl of egg drop soup and ate the steamed bun with it. Xiao Jia carefully tore off a piece of steamed bun and put it in her mouth. As soon as Xiao Jia put the steamed bun in her mouth, her eyes lit up. The rich wheat aroma and the sweet taste after chewing it. At this moment, Xiao Jia completely believed what Chun Fei and Chun Taidan said, that steamed buns are indeed better than white rice. Chapter 62 Meat is delicious. Forecourt. Chun Chung picked up a small piece of chicken intestine as if it were a treasure and stuffed it into his mouth carefully, fearing that it would fall to the ground. After taking the chicken intestines into his mouth and chewing them carefully, Chun Cheng's big eyes slowly lit up. Delicious, so delicious. Is this what meat tastes like? Chun Chung licked his lips, as if trying to lick away all the remaining taste, and kept exclaiming in praise. The brothers Chun Shi and Chun Mu chewed the food slowly, not wanting to swallow the chicken intestines, and chewed them repeatedly in their mouths. Delicious, so delicious. Meat is delicious. Like Chun Chung, the two brothers gave the highest praise to chicken intestines. Seeing this, Chen Dao couldn't help but laugh and cry. Looking at the expressions of the three brothers, someone who didn't know would have thought they were eating delicacies from land and sea instead of chicken offal. However, Chen Dao also understood the feelings of the three brothers. They had not eaten meat for several years, so any food with the smell of meat was enough to make them intoxicated, let alone chicken offal. Not to mention the three brothers, even Chen Si and Chun Jiang, who often went hunting in the mountains with Chun Da and occasionally got to eat some meat, also gave high praise to the taste of chicken offal. To put it bluntly, eating meat is the most basic need of human beings. For ordinary people who cannot eat meat all year round, even chicken offal, which is not strictly speaking meat, is enough to make them feel satisfied and happy. Sheng Yi. Chun Dao drank a sip of egg drop soup and said with a smile, "If you work hard, you might be able to eat meat in a while." Really? Chun Sheng and the other four looked at Chun Dao in surprise. They were always willing to believe what Chun Dao said, because Chun Dao had never failed to fulfill his promises. Certainly, Chun Dao nodded. As long as you work hard, you will definitely be able to eat meat. Don't worry, Brother Dao. We will definitely work hard. We will definitely make Dao's house beautiful. Brother Dao, just watch. We will definitely be able to build your house. Chun Chung and the others, who had received Chun Dao's affirmative answer, were even more excited. If they worked hard, they would be able to eat meat. This kind of thing would have been unthinkable in the past. 2 days later, as soon as the sky brightened, Wu Han got up from the bed. "Old Wu, what are you doing up so early?" Wu Han's wife Zhanya asked after hearing the noise. "I have business today and have to go out early. You should get up and make breakfast." Wu Han replied casually, then put on his clothes and opened the door of his house. But outside the door at this time, 3 young men in warm clothes were waiting outside. A gust of cold wind blew, and the 3 of them shivered. "Why are you here so early?" Wu Han asked with some surprise. These 3 young men were none other than the 3 younger brothers of his wife Zhanya. Wu Han's wife, Zhanya, was not from the county town, but from a village outside the city. Since marrying Zhanya, Wu Han also took on the responsibility of taking care of Zhanya's family and brought her 3 younger brothers into the city. Wu Han originally wanted to ask Zhanya's 3 younger brothers to help him, and he had done so in the past. The 3 brothers helped Wu Han, and Wu Han paid them so that they could live in the city. However, recently, as business has become increasingly difficult, Wu Han can no longer take care of the 3 brothers and can only let them go to the city to find some manual labor to do. The 3 brothers did not complain, and they did not even stay in Wu Han's house to affect the couple's lives. Instead, they supported themselves, worked, and lived in the cheapest house. Although their life was a little hard, they could still make ends meet. It was precisely because of the honest nature of these 3 brothers that Wu Han was willing to help them. If these 3 brothers were really the kind of idle people, Wu Han would not have tried so hard to help them, even for Zhanya's sake. "Didn't you, brother-in-law, ask us to come?" Zhang Ming, the oldest of the three brothers, smiled naively and said that 2 days ago, his brother-in-law Wu Han asked someone to inform them that there was a business that required the three of them to do, and asked them to come over today. So they got up in the morning and came to Wu Han's house to wait, without even having breakfast. Xiao Ming, you are too honest. Wu Han laughed and joked. You came so early, and you didn't even knock on the door. Aren't we afraid of disturbing my brother-in-law and sister? The second brother Zhang Shuai smiled and said that the three brothers still had a very good impression of their brother-in-law Wu Han. After marrying his sister, Wu Han had always done his best to help them. They all remembered these things in their hearts. Okay. Wu Han didn't say much and asked, have you had breakfast? If not, come in and have some together. Not yet. The three brothers did not exchange pleasantries with Wu Han and went straight into the house. Brother Ming, are you here? Zhangya, who had already gotten up and was busy in the kitchen, poked her head out, greeted the three brothers, then went back to continue her work. Wu Han motioned the three brothers to sit down in the living room and said, how's your work in the city been lately? It's barely enough to eat. Zhang Ming replied, brother-in-law should know that food prices are getting higher and higher in the city. I heard from the laborers that they used to be able to earn enough food for their families in a day's work, but now it's hard. The three of us brothers work together, but we only earn 30 copper coins a day, and that doesn't even include food. 30 copper coins. Wu Han's eyes widened, and he said in disbelief, how could it be so little? I don't know either. Zhang Ming scratched his head and said, the boss said that there are too many people looking for work now. Not to mention 10 copper coins. Even if it's 5 copper coins for a day's labor, there will be people who will do it. It's only because we three brothers are honest and work hard. Otherwise, he wouldn't want to hire us. This, Wu Han opened his mouth, feeling heavy in his heart. He knew that life in the city was difficult, but he didn't know it was so difficult. 3 strong men worked a day and earned only 30 copper coins, which was only enough to buy a pound of rice. What mess this dog has made. Wu Han cursed in his heart and chose to skip the topic. I called you here this time because I have a business that needs your help. Brother-in-law, tell me what you want, and we will definitely help you. The 3 brothers patted their chests and promised that they were very willing to help Wu Han with his work. Because of their relationship, Wu Han always took better care of them. For the same work, Wu Han would always be willing to pay them more. After receiving the assurance from the 3 brothers, Wu Han nodded and said, this time, our business needs to go outside the city. The reason I asked you to come here is to ask you to help protect the truck to prevent it from being targeted by thieves outside the city. Wu Han's business this time was, of course, the white-feathered chicken deal he'd agreed to with Chun Dao. In the past, when Wu Han purchased live poultry, he'd occasionally leave the city, but at most he'd never venture more than a mile from the county seat. But now, he had to travel to Qinjia village, over 10 miles away. Chapter 63 Wu Han arrives. To be honest, Wu Han was somewhat nervous about going so far to collect the goods. He also knew a little about the situation outside the city. There were refugees everywhere, and bandits and bullies were countless. Various dangers could occur at any time. But Qindao offered him too much. Not only did he make a profit of 100 coins for each white-feathered chicken, he also found a buyer for him. All he had to do was go to Qinjia village and bring the chickens back, and he would make a good profit. As a peddler, Wu Han could not refuse this kind of business. Therefore, no matter how dangerous it was outside the city, Wu Han had to make this trip. Do you need our help and protection? The 3 Zhang Ming brothers looked at each other and immediately made promises. Don't worry, brother-in-law. We will definitely ensure your safe return. Brother-in-law, it will be no problem for you to leave this matter to us. We will definitely be able to protect you and the goods. Even if we die, we will definitely protect you, brother-in-law. The 3 brothers were obviously not afraid of going out of the city. Because their parents were still in the village outside the city, they often went out of the city to go home. Occasionally, they would encounter thieves, but they were able to escape safely every time. I definitely believe you. Seeing the 3 brothers' expressions, Wu Han nodded and continued. Don't worry, as long as this deal goes through, my brother-in-law will definitely not be stingy and will at least give each of you this amount. Wu Han stretched out 2 fingers, and the 3 brothers' eyes lit up immediately. 2 fingers definitely couldn't be 20 coins, but 200 coins. 200 coins is not a small amount for 3 people. You know, they can only earn 30 coins after working hard for a day. And a trip outside the city can earn 600 coins. At this moment, the three brothers secretly made up their minds that they would protect their brother-in-law and the goods, even if it cost them their lives. The meal is ready. Come and eat. At this time, Zhangya poked her head out of the kitchen and called everyone to eat. The three brothers got up early in the morning and rushed to Wu Han's house. They were already hungry, so they hurried into the kitchen to eat with Wu Han and his wife. After finishing breakfast, and everyone equipped themselves with weapons, Wu Han pulled out his only donkey cart, and the four of them headed out of the city together. After the donkey cart left the city, it headed onto an official road lined with dense woods on both sides. Wu Han and Zhang Ming, the three brothers, looked at the woods on both sides with serious eyes, alert for thieves who might appear at any time. There are so many refugees. Looking at the refugees walking on the official road with numb expressions, Wu Han felt heavy in his heart. When he left the city before, he noticed the large number of refugees gathered outside the city, and also saw many corpses of people who starved to death outside the city. He thought that was shocking enough, but he never expected that there were quite a few refugees on the official road. These refugees may think that the county town is their hope, but they have no idea that even if they arrive in the county town, they cannot enter the city, let alone get a little food from the government. The donkey cart moved forward slowly. Perhaps because there was no cargo on the cart, it moved at a relatively fast speed. In just over half an hour, Wu Han and his four companions successfully arrived at the entrance of Qinjia village. Stop! However, when Wu Han was about to enter the village, he was stopped by a young man. But then a young man standing under a tree at the entrance of the village stopped the donkey cart with his hand and shouted, "Who are you?" The young man was none other than Go. Ever since the last incident where refugees tried to break into the village chief Chun, he has responded by arranging a young and strong man from the village to guard the village entrance every day and observe the situation at the entrance at any time to prevent refugees from breaking into the village again. Although Wu Han and his four companions did not look like refugees, Go did not dare to be careless and stop them. This young man, Wu Han, a businessman, stepped forward with a smile and said, "I'm a peddler, invited by Brother Dao. Could you please let me into the village?" "You can't enter the village." Go's expression relaxed a little when he heard Dao's name, but he still shook his head and said, "The village chief said that no outsiders can enter the village without permission. If you're looking for Brother Dao, I can help you call him out. Then I'll trouble you, little brother." Wu Han had no intention of forcing his way in. He just smiled and said, "Okay, then you wait here. I'll help you go in and call Brother Dao." After signaling Wu Han and the other three to wait at the village entrance, Go ran into the village and disappeared from their sight in the blink of an eye. Looking in the direction where Go disappeared, Zhang Hua, the youngest of the three Zhang Ming brothers, couldn't help but frown and said, "Brother-in-law, this village doesn't look very wealthy. Are there really the white-feathered chickens you mentioned?" On the way to Qinjia village, Wu Han had already told the three brothers the details of the transaction, so the three brothers knew that Wu Han was coming to Qinjia village to purchase white-feathered chickens. Only, the three brothers looked past the village entrance and into Qinjia village. They saw that the situation in Qinjia village was no different from their own village. The village was deserted and looked extremely depressed. It did not look like a wealthy village at all, and it did not look like the white-feathered chickens that the brother-in-law had mentioned. Let's wait and see. Wu Han was somewhat uncertain, but since he was already here, he had to wait and see what the situation was like. Besides, Brother Chen doesn't seem like a liar, so he wouldn't make me make a wasted trip, right? In the Chun family's house, when Wu Han arrived at the village entrance, Chun Dao was feeding the chickens and counting them. 2 days later, another 7 chicks hatched. At this time, the total number of yellow-feathered chickens had reached 47, including 15 adult yellow-feathered chickens, 29 young yellow-feathered chickens, and 3 blood-feathered chickens. The reason why the number of blood-feathered chickens has not increased is because Chun Dao has been eating a blood-feathered chicken every day to practice boxing these days. While cultivating the blood-feathered chickens, he has been consuming them at the same time, so the number naturally will not increase. Of course, Chun Dao could also choose to cultivate a large number of blood-feathered chickens at one time, but he did not do so because the breeding efficiency of blood-feathered chickens is far lower than that of yellow-feathered chickens. At least so far, Chun Dao has not seen blood-feathered chickens lay eggs. Therefore, instead of breeding blood-feathered chickens in large numbers, it is better to keep the adult yellow-feathered chickens for further breeding, and then breed them in large numbers when the number of chickens is large enough. As for now, Just a small amount of training is enough for my own martial arts practice. Based on the growth rate of this flock, I'm afraid the number of yellow-feathered chickens will soon exceed 100. Chundao silently calculated in his mind that now 3 to 5 yellow-feathered chicks are born every day, and 2 to 3 yellow-feathered chickens grow up every day. This number is still quite considerable, and it will continue to grow. Chapter 64, Noble Chundao. As the number of adult yellow-feathered chickens increases, the speed of egg laying and hatching will also increase. During this period, there may be only 3 to 5 yellow-feathered chicks added every day. In a few days, it may become 5 to 8, and after a while, it will become 10. If it continues to grow at this rate, it will probably take only 2 or 3 months for the house to be overcrowded with chickens. Of course, this number will not grow indefinitely. Although yellow-feathered chickens lay more eggs and have a shorter growth cycle, they also have their own shortcomings, which is they age quickly. According to Chundao's observation, the first yellow-feathered chickens are now laying eggs less and less frequently. I'm afraid that in the near future, these yellow-feathered chickens will become completely old and will no longer lay eggs. At that time, these yellow-feathered hens will completely lose the value of continuing to be raised. They will either be slaughtered for meat or raised to be blood-feathered chickens and sold. Brother Dao. Just as Chundao was thinking, a voice came from outside the door. Hearing the familiar voice, Chundao subconsciously touched Xiaoyuan on his shoulder and then opened the door to the front yard. Brother Go, why are you here? As soon as the gate opened, Chundao saw Chungo's face full of flattery. Brother Dao, someone is looking for you outside the village. I'm here to help call you, Chungo said with a smile on his face. When Chundao heard someone was looking for him, Wuhan's figure immediately appeared in his mind. Apart from Wuhan, who had been agreed upon, there was no one else who could come to Qinjia village to look for him. I understand. Go. Wait for me for a moment. Chundao returned to the house, took out 5 pounds of sorghum flour, and handed it to Chungo. Thank you for your hard work, Brother Go. Take these 5 pounds of sorghum flour. Chungo took the sorghum noodles, his eyes blazing with light, and he kept saying, Thank you, Brother Dao. Thank you, Brother Dao. Chungo could never have imagined that just by helping to notify, he could harvest 5 kilograms of sorghum flour. He was naturally very surprised at this moment and was extremely grateful to Chundao. You're welcome. Chundao smiled and waved his hand, then went straight out to his own construction site, found Chunda, and got straight to the point. Uncle, the white feather chicken buyers are here. How many chickens do you plan to sell this time? Wuhan is here. Chunda, who was unloading wood, was startled. After thinking for a moment, he said, Let's sell 20 this time. After a long period of exploration, Chunda has understood the reproduction speed of white-feathered chickens. Although white-feathered chickens lay eggs far less frequently than yellow-feathered chickens, they're not bad either. On average, a white-feathered hen can lay an egg every 2 days, and a new white-feathered chicken can be hatched in about 10 days. Now, the number of white-feathered chickens in Chen's family has reached more than 60, and they have formed a stable breeding pattern. Therefore, he does not plan to sell all the white-feathered chickens at once, but only plans to sell some older white-feathered chickens. Okay, then Uncle, take the white-feathered chicken with you, and we'll go to the village entrance to meet Wuhan. Not long after, Chunda returned home and took all the white-feathered chickens that needed to be sold. Then the two of them went to the village entrance and saw Wuhan and his 4 companions who were stomping their feet and waiting. It's really uncomfortable to stand in an open place like the village entrance and wait in this cold weather. Fortunately, at this time, Wuhan saw Chundao and Chunda coming towards him. Of course, he focused more on the chicken coops carried by Chunda and Chundao. To Wuhan, the clucking of chickens coming from the chicken coop was simply the most beautiful sound in the world. Brother Chen really didn't lie to me. He really has a lot of white-feathered chickens here. Wuhan's heart was burning with excitement. He hurried forward and greeted Chundao and the other man. Brother Chun. Brother Wu. Chundao gave Wuhan a warm hug and said with a smile, You're here really early. After saying that, Chundao glanced at the 3 Zhongming brothers beside Wuhan and said, Brother Wu, it's not safe to leave the city with so few people. Chundao had personally experienced the dangers of the official road outside the city, and he knew very well that Wuhan's limited manpower was not enough to guarantee the safety of his own life and goods. There's nothing we can do about it. Wuhan sighed softly and said, I know we're short on manpower, but I simply can't afford to hire guards. There was one thing Wuhan didn't say. That was he wasn't sure whether Chundao really had white feathered chickens to sell to him. Before he saw any profit, he naturally wouldn't be willing to spend a lot of money to find enough people to serve as guards. Fortunately, now that he has seen the white feathered chicken, he feels a little more at ease. 2. Chundao didn't dwell on the matter too much. He felt that he had already left Wuhan with enough profit, so the risk of leaving the city would naturally be borne by Wuhan. Then let's talk about the white feathered chickens. I've already told you, Brother Wu, that these white feathered chickens are priced at 400 won each. Shouldn't you have any objections, Brother Wu? Of course not. Wuhan smiled, then said a little embarrassedly, Brother Chun, the money I brought this time is not enough. I wonder if you can give me some time and pay you next time I come? Although Wuhan was a businessman, he was just a small vendor after all. He did not have much capital. 20 white feathered chickens required 8 taels of silver. It was impossible for Wuhan to have so much money on hand. Otherwise, he would not have been troubled by the government's tax increase. Didn't you bring enough money? Chundao was stunned for a moment, then thought for a moment and said, That's no problem. Chundao was not worried that Wuhan would default on the money. It was a simple truth. The white feather chicken business was a sure-win business. Anyone with a long-term vision would know that continuing this business was the best choice. Only short-sighted people would think of doing it once and then defaulting on the debt and running away. But Chundao changed the subject and said, Brother Wu, since you'll pay next time you come here, why don't you do me a favor? What help do you need? Just tell me, Brother Chun. Wuhan said generously. Next time you come, please exchange all this money for food and ship it over to me. How about that? This was Chundao's idea, and it was also Chundao's idea. In this year, it was useless to ask for too much money. Instead, he would feel more at ease if he could exchange it for food. In exchange for food, Wuhan didn't think much about it and agreed immediately. That's no problem. If you can't buy enough food, you can replace it with gray-feathered chickens. After the deal was concluded, Chundao gestured to General Chun to put the chicken cages on Wuhan's donkey cart. He then smiled and said to Wuhan, Brother Wu, do you want to come into the village and sit for a while? Next time. Wuhan declined politely. I'm in a hurry to get back to the city to sell these chickens. Brother Chun, you know the roads get difficult after dark. We have to hurry back. Otherwise, it might be dangerous if we're late. The official road to the county town is relatively safe during the day, but after dark. Chapter 65, Chundao's Face. Even in peaceful years, few people dare to walk outside the city at night, let alone at this time. Not only do they need to be wary of wild beasts that may emerge from the forest at any time, but they also have to be wary of those vicious thieves. Unless they are martial artists with great martial arts skills, they dare not walk at night. All right, then we'll go back first. Brother Wu, please walk slowly. By the way, the next transaction will be in 10 days. Brother Wu, you can come back in 10 days. After Chundao said goodbye to Wuhan, he walked back to the village with Chunda. After the two men left, Zhang Ming, who had been silent until then, finally spoke up. Brother-in-law, this village actually sells such a unique breed of chicken. How can I lie to you? Had successfully acquired 20 white-feathered chickens, was in high spirits. He said with a smile, Don't underestimate Brother Chun because he's young. He's no